I'm Ed Grondelski, Chair of the Town Council. I'll call this meeting to order. My glasses on. For roll call, all members are here. I don't know, John, are you on? See, John LaBelle is not with us right now. Hopefully he will be joining us. Okay. Item number 3, interviews of board and commission applicants. First up would be Karina Torrey, reappointment inland, wetlands, and watercourses. Either way, whatever you want, wherever you feel comfortable. Let's put it that way.
Hello there.
I appreciate you volunteering again.
Thank you.
You've been active on the commission and whatnot. We saw you on the sidewalk and whatever, so I appreciate you participating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you want to offer before we ask her any questions, or any requests from the council that you might think of that we can help you guys out?
Oh, boy. That's a loaded question.
Well, you know, it's...
I don't know that we have enough time for that. But, no, it's been quite a learning experience and quite an adventure being on the Wetlands Commission. I got involved because there were things going on in town that I didn't know anything about, and I wanted to know more about it and how it was going to impact where I live. And so I'm still at it.
Well, it's good.
You learned very quickly.
Thank you, yes. So,
Sandy's a good teacher.
yes, yes.
Go ahead, Dave.
So have you had any training since you've been on the inland wetlands?
Yeah, there were a couple of different things that I was pointed to when I first started, believe it or not, and this goes way back. There were CDs that I had gotten from the Killingly Library to learn about reading the site plans and how to understand what all of, the little symbols and, the arrows and all that stuff on there. And then there are trainings that are done both from a legal perspective and then also for reading the site plans and stuff that are done, like Connecticut Deep offers some stuff and other resources online that we've been pointed to.
So you've covered all the bases then?
Well, there's always more to learn because things are always changing, right? So, I mean, not just at the town level, but, just in terms of technology and advancements and improvements that we make, so.
Do you see any additional regulations that the town may need?
I really don't, from a legal standpoint, from an environmental standpoint.
Both.
Yes. I'm just gonna leave it at, I will say yes. So.
And you propose those, or?
I personally have not, no. I mean, the commission, of course, can talk about different regulations that we may need to or want to discuss, propose changes to and whatnot, but no, I personally have not done that.
I'm all set.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one.
Sure.
So far, being on the commission, what would you say you've learned that you find is the most concerning?
There are a couple of different things. Most recently, I would say, is a lot of folks are not, I'm going to say, in the know as far as the process that is followed when projects come presented to the town or development comes to the town. People are not informed of what that process is. And so, of course, wetlands is the first stop if wetlands are going to be impacted. We're like the first line of, line of sight. We're the first ones that get the shot. And I think just overall, broader education and more information. I know that the town tries, but there are 300 different million ways that people are absorbing information, and sometimes I think it all gets a little garbled and confusing if some sort of standardization could be adhered to, from the town's perspective, as in this is the way that we are going to relay and communicate information, may help to mitigate some of the confusion and, craziness around everything that goes on in the town, if that makes sense.
That's a good point. I think we all battle that, the information getting to the townspeople, or
Yeah.
where they can find it, knowing when we have votes. It seems to come up time and time again. I don't know that there's a perfect answer, but
Oh, yeah,
it's good that, it's nice for the public, for you to, yeah, there is, but it's nice for the public to hear it from you, that you have to follow a set of procedures. You know,
Yep.
you don't have the, you can have a opinion of what it is, but
Yep.
there's a procedure.
Yep, there is a process behind it all, yes. So, yeah, absolutely.
I'll just piggyback on that, but it's nice to see the public at the meetings.
Yes.
So there are many different meetings that they attend, and sometimes it gets confusing for people,
Yeah.
whether you're at inland wetlands, whether you're at planning and zoning,
Yep.
or whether you're at the town council.
Yep.
So they're trying to absorb all of these things at the same time. But
Oh,
it
yeah.
is nice to see everybody come to the meetings and participate.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The information definitely has to be disseminated even more. I think just the avenue in which it's done, if there is a consistent way to get that message out, I think everybody, it's kind of that single source of truth. And then you don't have 600 different sources that have a version of that truth, kind of like the telephone game, right? It goes from one to one to one to one, and it all kind of filters and a word can get changed, a phrase can get changed. So if there's some standardization with it, I think that just helps to reduce the amount of confusion, that's all.
I think with each meeting, it's gotten a little bit better.
I agree. I agree.
Well, we appreciate you stepping forward again.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you stepping forward again. I know with the warehouses, it's been a little testy. But like you said, people are not aware. And if they come here for the first time, it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta hand it to them to come out.
Oh, yeah.
And then you come to the podium and you're told, well, you can't discuss that right now. It's another meeting. And so how do we get that out? So
Yeah.
I think we're doing a reasonable job. And
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
last night's meeting went fairly well. So,
Yes, no mudslinging, so that's always good. No one got hurt, so that's the goal, right? So,
okay, we thank you very much and we'll be in
Absolutely.
touch.
sounds good.
Next
Thank you
week.
so much.
Thank you. Next is Aaron Achenbach, reappointment to the Agriculture Commission.
Did we skip B, Brian Breer?
Oh, okay. Well, Brian, come on, sorry, Brian. I saw the space and, okay.
Hey, Ed,
Well-
everyone. Good evening.
Thanks to you for, reapplying. We got a lot of issues down there. The sewer authority has got, that's the town, the biggest issue that we have, from my standpoint, and I think everybody else, and there's no easy answer.
Not yet. That's for sure.
And, it'd be nice, we have one alternate place available, but, we're still moving along. And, I appreciate you putting your hat in the ring again.
Yeah, no, it's quite a learning experience. I'm actually, I'm proud to be sitting on that board. I didn't know what I was getting into when I applied for that board, but I've learned a lot.
Well, I know the first couple of times it was like, I said, I liked what you asked. You asked some questions, which was really good to get into it. And from that, just proceed and
Yep.
you are engaged.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we need.
We need to be engaged. We need to be engaged as a town for all our stuff that's going on in our town. Absolutely.
Anyone else have any questions?
Sure. I'm always interested why we're having so much odor come from the plant.
I don't work at that facility. I don't know anything about the chemistry.
No?
Absolutely nope. I'm a plumbing and heating contractor. I can't tell you what's going on there with that. I do know that there's been conversations of it for when we're doing the upgrade. So I wouldn't know how that's all going to get resolved, but I know that there is talks on it. And from what I understand, it's funny. I never seen you at the meeting though, sir. At the sewer meeting, but there has been talks on it with the plant supervisor, Ben, and there's actually been less odor recently over the last several months than there was the year prior, if I'm not mistaken on that. But it'd be really good if a lot of the people came down to the sewer meetings and sat in and heard what was going on there. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah, we have nobody. We're by ourselves.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
public
I'd
very
love to
seldom
see
comes
people
in.
down there. Then they can understand what's going on down there. And they know how to address it to the town, because there's a lot of talk of it.
10, 15 years ago, I attended most all those meetings. I had them put a sign out front to call when you smell the odor, because they wanted to know where and when it was happening. So I've been working on it for a while. They tell me the reason it has odor is your settling tanks have to vaporize off, and that's where you're getting it from. And if you covered them, you would get even more problems with the concrete, would corrode a lot faster. So I'm also interested in what other plants do to
Oh, I wouldn't
combat
have
it.
any idea, Mr. Griffins.
I know, but that's,
If you want, you could go down there and talk to Ben or talk to Joe. Maybe they could help, with some of them questions that you have, because they actually work at the facility.
if you're gonna spend the kind of money that is gonna be needed, we also wanna probably address that situation.
And then, like I mentioned, I know they've had talks on it. And like I also mentioned, I know that in the past year, the smell has been getting considerably less, because it's even discussed in some of the meetings when people complain about the smell and the odor.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Brian?
So, as somebody that shops at Big Y a lot, I can honestly tell you that there's not as much odoriferous smells coming that way. But I can tell you that I remember that 8th grade tour of the sewer plant when we all drove around all the different buildings all around town, and I thought I would never, ever, ever want to go back there. But I walked the plant not that long ago. Actually, I've walked it twice in the last probably year and a half. I think people would have a much better understanding of what we're looking to do with the expansion and how all the regulations we have. I mean, it's not the most, probably not the first thing people want to walk is the sewer plant. But it's really get a good understanding of what we're up against. I
Yeah,
think.
it's the third Wednesday of every month. So anybody can come right down there. We'd love to see the people, we'd love to see the town people, so they can understand what we're up against and be part of the conversation and part of the solution.
We'd love to have you come up here and have your meetings, so you can have a bigger audience,
Well, I don't have a problem with that.
okay? But that's what we'd like to see. I don't know about the rest of them, but it would be nice.
I don't think anybody down there has a problem with that. And if that's really something that the town would like to see, I can ask that. I can definitely look into that for you, Mr. Griffith.
I would appreciate that
Yeah,
very much.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I think there was just a conflict with the Board of Education meetings and some overlap, but they're no longer, the Board of Ed is no longer at the town hall, so you could move here.
Yeah, well, when we have our meeting this month, I'll bring it up. Brian will hopefully be there because he usually attends. I see Ed there quite a bit, and I'll mention it to Pat. And we'll see if we can get that started for everybody. Absolutely. I'd rather have them here. And maybe that's a good idea to get everybody more engaged. Absolutely.
I appreciate you stepping forward for another go-around, and we'll see what the plant
Okay.
in a couple of weeks.
Ashley, did you have anything you were gonna say? No? Okay. All right, thank you for your time.
We'll be in touch after next week. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Aaron Achenbach, reappointment to Ag Commission. Sorry about this screw up.
Call my name, I'll come up, it's all right.
Just give us a little background, you know, why you like it and whatnot, and why you decided to re-up, and
Sure. A few years ago, I got a notification that said there were openings on commissions, and I thought it sounded interesting. I finally had some time to volunteer with the town, and so I came in looking at something about historical, and then they said, but you have a farm, and we've got holes on agriculture. Do you want to be on agriculture? And I said, sure. And so when I started, and in the early days of the commission, we struggled to get a number of people, but that's changed in the last year, and we've really seen growth in the commission, and we've been able to hold more meetings because we've been able to have a quorum. We've implemented the handout to help people in town find agricultural services and connect some of the agricultural community, and we're going to expand that this year. I've also re-engaged with Killingley High School and become a member of their advisory committee from all of the sending towns. And so, yeah, it's been a bit of a learning curve, but I think things are coming together and we're making some progress.
but it's been a positive experience for you from what I'm taking it, so that's good. That's what we wanted. It
Yeah.
was positive, that,
Yes.
well, it has to be positive because you're coming back for more, so I like that.
Right.
Any other comments?
What is the goal of the commission?
I believe our intended purpose is to help support the agricultural community in Killingley. And so that is one of the questions that I think we try to ask ourselves is what can we do to best support what's happening? And so we try to connect with people who are providing services, then we do some interviews with the handout so that we're actually talking to the people that we're representing to the community. And so I think, what does that look like in a town that, like, agriculture is tough because people do it a lot half and half. People are making their living all the way, and some of them are doing things on the side, and some people are just people who want to learn more about it. And I think we sit in the middle of all that and try to combine all these people and their resources and the information to create benefit.
Do you have people coming in and do demonstrations about farming?
We have had mushroom classes that we have offered. I led and offered a pruning workshop. We're going to be hosting a seed starting workshop. We've tried to partner with the garden, the community garden. We've talked about partnering with them, and then also partnering with the high school to try to consolidate programs so that we're all not just doing our own versions of the same programs, that if we use each other to get to their networks, that will have a greater impact.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yep. And so I'm liaison to that, the Agriculture Commission. Erin does a great job. She chairs it. And all the things she said were spot on. I believe this year, this is kind of amazing that this can happen, but it goes to show you with information of what people know and what they don't know in the town. So our VOAG, correct, brings in all the sending towns, the one that they just had?
11 different sending towns.
They bring them in here to our high school and have a meeting, and our agriculture, we didn't even know that existed. So-
It got dropped when we had the kind of the transfer of the people. When I came in a few years ago, there was kind of a passing of people. And I think the liaison got dropped off. And so they haven't had a Killingly representative in years to Killingly High School they have a semi-annual meeting. And so I attended, they just happened to have one, so I attended the one about a month ago, and they'll have another one in the fall. And I did find it somewhat amusing that nobody reached out to us, because we're the town that they're in. But, you know, they're also volunteers and teachers and things like that are also just trying to do their best, and so they were excited to have representation. And I think it just kind of fell off, and it was something they meant to do. But it was enlightening, and I think it'll be positive for the commission.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you stepping forward for another round, and we'll discuss it next week, and we'll be in touch.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Lori Zornato, reappointment to the Board of Rec.
Hello?
Hello, appreciate you stepping up again. Things are a lot more going to be going on once we get in the community center. Hopefully that will be a very positive, it'll be a learning curve, I guess. But any comments that you would like to make?
Well, to be honest, we have not had a lot of board meetings at the rec this season because of weather, illness, quorum, things like that. But in spite of that, I think the rec department has done an amazing job keeping the activities together. The theater is doing an amazing job in spite of the environment. If I had a tender wish that we could invest in that building and in that theater so that it could become state of an art theater program. It's going to take a lot of money, but it would be a promise for income for the town, and I think it's going to be, when we get it together, an amazing program for the community. So I know it's still going to take a lot of funds to get the theater back up to running, but I think that with some investment, maybe grants, maybe programs, I don't know, to get that running and up to speed, we won't regret investment for that theater. So.
It seems like that's dragging out over there, and how do we light a fire to get it going, get the contractor to finish? And then, I don't know if there's other areas, but once we get in there and make it work, I think it's gonna be a big, big plus. Any other comments?
Well,
Tammy.
I sit as liaison, work with Lori and quite a bit. Rec is a great program. The rec department does everything literally from birth to the grave. It's really cool to see LIR. They lost their home at QVCC, and we welcomed them in, and I mean, the senior movie once a week and all the other senior, the trips. And honest with you, I just went this past weekend to Finding Neverland. Very, 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 very good. Even my 10-year-old granddaughter, which I thought when at intermission she would get up, I said, "Oh, you're ready to go?" She goes, "No, I need snacks." So I mean, it was a 2.5-hour play, and held her attention, and it was a lot of action, and it's always well done. I was there to see the Rudolph one. I was like, it's like somebody was playing the DVD that I have at home of the one, the real one. And so they do a really great job with what they have, and and I know Lori's always willing to help out, so she's, if it wasn't for our volunteers, rec probably wouldn't be able to do what we do, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Dave, go ahead.
So I was so happy to know that we're going to be open to homeschoolers that don't normally go to our schools to participate in the programs that you put on. Because I always feel they're kind of left out. They're paying the taxes, they don't attend regular school, but it's so nice when they can get together with other children their own age and participate in the various programs. So, and I know you're advertising it on your brochures, so that is very appreciative. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a resource that maybe we could advertise more for homeschooling or alternative ed situations, because my kids attended some of those programs when they homeschooled as well, and I think not everyone knows that they can attend and participate.
Thank you for your time and your volunteerism. Appreciate it very much.
Yep. Next up, we have David Izzo, reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Good evening, everybody. David Izzo, I'm coming before you to get reappointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've been on the Zoning Board of Appeals 12-plus years. We're really not that busy because any matters that come are rectified by the town prior to getting to us, but yeah, so that's about it.
Well, we appreciate you volunteering again.
Thank you.
It has to be a good experience, because you wouldn't be here.
It
you
is.
know, getting
It
reappointed,
is.
so.
Yeah, it is. Some
I
of the
appreciate-
cases that come up are interesting, so. Kind of learn a lot not to put your fence like right next to your neighbor's land and stuff like that, but
Do you think we have enough training for the position that you have?
absolutely. I just completed a training, I believe, within a year and a half ago. It was a whole Saturday that we trained with some attorneys on legal stuff, so yeah, we do, absolutely. Jonathan's great at it too, being our chairperson, well, being the liaison, thank you. So,
Any questions, comments?
Just one. Do you have trouble having a quorum?
no, because we do have one alternate, so it makes it, we do have a quorum. Sometimes I'll call in if I have to.
How often do you meet?
It varies. Like I said, if something comes before the town and they can fix it downstairs, it's fine. If not, then it'll come to us, and then we'll have a meeting. So it's questionable, maybe 3-4 times a year if that's her.
And how do you, you listen to the situation, then you make a decision?
Yes, sir.
And who does that decision go to?
Well, we vote on it.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
That goes back to planning? Where does it go?
yeah, it goes back to zoning board. Yes, the zoning and planning and zoning, yes. Sorry.
So then they accept the information coming from the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Well, we're glad you have I'm glad. I'll never get used to that, but it's okay. I don't mind. We're glad you're having a reasonable, good experience, and you're reapplying for the position. So we appreciate that, and we'll discuss the position next week, and we'll be in touch. Oh, go ahead.
I serve as liaison to the.
Yes.
So why do you want to continue serving on the zoning board of appeals And what interests you as opposed to serving on the planning
So
and zoning?
I am a licensed realtor, and I'm also a former appraiser, so it all kind of fits in together. So when I look at the stuff that comes before is what the code book and stuff, it makes sense. Kind of like baking a cake, so to speak, it just all comes together, so.
All right, so I did come up with a couple questions. How would you handle a case where the hardship appears self-created, such as an applicant brought a piece of property knowing the zoning restrictions? Because this was an actual situation that I saw at a zoning board of appeal meeting.
I don't remember, I apologize.
No, what would you do in
Well,
such a
obviously, we would
situation?
have to review it and give our decision, vote on it, and then it goes back to the town. I mean, if it's a hardship, depending on the hardship,
Self-created. Okay, I'll give you an example. In a low-density zone, you're supposed to have 30,000 square feet, or 40,000 if you have septic and well.
yes.
But in an area prior to zoning, there was a lot that was didn't conform. It was too small. The people that bought the land had plans for a house that was too big. So how would you?
Well, they would have to reconfigure the house to make it smaller, to make it suitable for what the laws are.
Thank you, because that's not exactly what happened.
I don't recall the meeting, I apologize. But
You may not have been there. Just another question. If you just agreed with other board members on a case, how would you handle it while still following the law and procedures?
if I have something to say, I'm going to say it. That's the way I am, so. Tammy can vouch for that. So, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you.
And we'll discuss the reappointment next week, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Next up is Benjamin Richards' appointment to the Agricultural Commission. Thank you for coming forward. Give us a little background.
Do I need to hold it?
No,
Thank you. That's easy to see. Well, I chose to live in this area because I liked what I saw when I looked at Google Maps, and it was a lot of green. I came from 117 in Rhode Island, and I've lived in just about every area of that state as well. I grew up moving from town to town quite often, and I've seen a lot of different things. I mean, I lived in East Greenwich, so I'm quite familiar with the sewer smell. And in fact, I lived right across the street from the sewer treatment plant as well. So I'm actually quite interested to see what's going on there, because I don't know quite a lot, but I have a lot of time because events outside of my control have given me quite a plethora of time to look at things and understand them. So I'm willing to take in new information and new roles in order to serve our community, because I chose to be here and I saw what I liked, and I want to see that continue in certain ways. And I understand that there's processes and things need to evolve and grow. Life is like a river, it keeps flowing, and we can't stay stagnant, otherwise we die. But I just like what I see, and I want to continue to like what I see and feel comfortable in our community, because I think it's something that is great and can continue to be great.
have you attended any meetings of the commission prior to?
For the Agricultural Commission,
Yes.
I have.
Okay, so that piqued your interest a little bit more?
Well, that opened the door. That put my foot in the door and allowed me to feel comfortable in a space like this, because I've never had a chance to sit. I've always been a person who uses my hands, and I work with my hands and my body rather than just my voice. So sitting down and looking at problems is not something new, but I'm not used to using myself in this way. But I have situations that make this a lot easier for me to do now, but because I have real life practical application with my hands and I'm a systems thinker, I want to take the time to understand the agricultural board even more. In fact, I attended the pruning class that Erin had hosted as well.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm the only one who showed up for that. It's all right. If you want something, it's worth enduring some. There's a difference between unpleasant discomfort and pain. And sometimes you got to put yourself through some discomfort to grow. So, I mean, it was cold and I wanted to learn and I want to be a part of this. And I have land and it needs my attention. And I want to grow food for my community and my people because I have a lot of time to use these hands. And something like that board is going to put more tools on my belt to make these hands worth something that is worth investing in, essentially.
Any?
So, you actually have no personal experience with agriculture. You want this to be a learning experience and to teach others what you've learned.
Yes, I've just started my journey. I'm not completely fresh, but I might as well have only taken about 2 or 3 steps. I've been working with a organization called Healing by Growing Farms that helps with people who have suffered from traumatic brain injuries, or TBIs, which I have. And it started my growth, my understanding, and my appreciation for things like this. And since I do have space for it, I want to continue to grow in that direction.
It's very rewarding to grow your own plants from seeds and then to go out and pick the fruits of your labor.
Yes. In fact, I want to do that for my community because I picked to be here too, and I feel like the agricultural board is the place to do that. I want to help us grow.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Go ahead, Dave.
Do you think Kilme is doing enough to encourage agriculture to stay here and to flourish here?
That's something that I truly need to get more information on. I don't have enough information to truly comment deeply and adequately, I feel, but I want to get into this. I want to get these hands dirty, because dirty hands means something other than bad. It means clean money and understanding. I need to get in to understand this, but I feel that there are a lot of things that can be polished. It's not fixed. It's not broken. Just shiny a little bit, you know? A little bit of tarnish. Patina's okay, though. It means it's been used. It's appreciated. You don't discard it because it's slightly not shiny. You work with it.
I mean, you got the state regulations under 490 that gives them a tax break.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure a lot of people really understand all of 490. And I was hoping the Ag Commission would try to get more information out, because I think that one of the things that farmers need is all the breaks they can get under the law to be able to at least make a living in agriculture. Thank you.
And I completely agree. Thank you, because you're giving me a compass. I understand the map. I'm looking at it. I see the terrain. But do I go left? Do I go right? Do I go diagonal from here? You're giving me a point to look at, and I will look into this if I have a chance to actually sit at that table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comment?
Just a
Tony?
quick one. Yeah, well, thank you for coming forward. I did see him at a meeting, 2 meetings, and it's been fun. Every month we have a meeting. There's been a quorum for probably about 18 months. In the beginning, it was pretty spotty, so it's nice to see more people coming out. And appreciate you volunteering.
Thank you.
Anything? Okay. Well, appreciate you coming forward. We will discuss your application next week, and we will be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have citizens' statements and petitions. Pursuant to the Town Council Rules of Procedure, Article 4, Section 2, all presentations by citizens shall be limited to an aggregate of 45 minutes, and each citizen presentation shall not exceed 5 minutes unless otherwise indicated by a majority vote of the council. And that would apply for now. Any public comment? Yes, we have some public comment. Okay. Public comment, because this is a special meeting, the public comment has to be with respect to the items on the agenda. So that one is, okay. So I guess we will save these public comment for next week's meeting. Okay, moving on. New business. Interview possible town council member replacement. I'd like to have a motion that we would like to interview Adam Reynolds.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Adam, you want to come up? Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Any abstaining?
Any abstain? Okay, motion passes.
Yeah.
We're glad you came forward. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. I've run for town council before, so this is not something this is new for me. I did run back in 2021 in District 3. I also served on the Permanent Building Commission for 2 years when we were redoing KMS. I feel like this is a really good fit. I feel like I participate in loads of activities in this town, and I'm really a boots on the grounds guy. Like I am involved in this town on a regular basis. It's no secret, my wife is also the president of the KBA. That is the Keeling Business Association here, so we are always in volunteer or fundraising events constantly. I feel like this is one more way that my family can give back, is participating in the town council.
Well, I appreciate it, because, when you ran for town council, you didn't win. But you came back, at least now you're coming back.
Yep.
It's a little different situation, but I have to applaud you that because you lost the election, it didn't mean that you weren't interested anymore. So some people, when they get that, they've had enough, but I appreciate you persevering. Do you have any comments? Oh, Ula, I'll go Ula.
I have several questions.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Do you have any goals that you'd like to see that the town pursued?
I want to make sure the town stays safe. I want to feel like our downtown is getting a little uncomfortable lately. I know that because I actually belong to a CrossFit gym that's in downtown, and we run up and down the streets on a regular basis, and it's not like it was a couple years back. I'd like to see if we can do something about it. I believe there's like a motion going forward about maybe doing some kind of cameras or something. I feel like we gotta have some way of accountability, in downtowns or more congested areas, so we can make everybody else feel safe. I mean, there are certain events that people don't go to because they're a little more uncomfortable than they used to be. I feel like the water pollution, we gotta get a handle on that. I was here for one of the meetings during the budget, and they talked about how They are one of the most inexpensive water pollution systems in the state. And backing that up, they have systems that have been in place since the 50s without being updated. I feel like at some point we gotta do something about that. You know, I see all the hype on the warehouse. You know, I look at that and I see people getting upset about it, but at the same time, if someone's not breaking a regulation, I don't know how much we can do about it, you know? So if we want to change the face of that, then we need to make sure we make regulations that can control where that goes. And I want it to be affordable to live in this town too. I don't want it to all of a sudden turn into, we just keep racking up more and more debt just to try to facilitate every single need there is. We have to find out what's most important and what people around us recognize as a value and try to make sure that's heard.
Follow up?
In order to keep Killingly rural, would you be in favor of more sewer avoidance areas?
What areas?
Areas that you're not gonna run sewer lines in because you want to have it to stay more rural.
I don't think city sewer is a extra for rural. I think you have to have some level of business to support rural areas. I think you need, you know, just like everything else, you need a backbone to be able to carry the weight of everything else. You know, if you flip it around, like my parents live in a town in Maine where, you know, get a gallon of milk is a 45-minute ride each direction, you know, but they pay $500 a year in taxes. They have no sewer system. They have a volunteer fire department that, unless your fire happens on a weekend, you're not in good shape during the week. All this infrastructure that we kind of take for granted on a regular basis is there because we find a way to collaborate together to fund it, make sure someone's running it, someone's gonna volunteer in it, and we gotta find a way to find what's the happy place. Do we need to increase sewer system for some growth? Yes, like, you know, if we wanna put a simple bakery in downtown right now, we can't do that. You know, and it could be a building we already have, but because it wasn't zoned that originally as a bakery, now we can't have a bakery. You know, I don't feel like that should be tamed back. I feel like we should be able to have small business. You know, I got a perfect example that I love using. You know, everyone wants to talk about the warehouse, right? Is this warehouse gonna be automated with 7 people working in it? There's a coffee shop in town that's got 6 people that work full-time in it, and it only takes 350 square feet. You know, and that's a great place for people to come get together, enjoy their time. You got 6 people that are living there, paying taxes. So that, I think, brings a lot of value to our town. But we can't cut off our knees by not having enough sewer system for it.
Thank you.
So kind of my question's a little bit piggyback off of Dave's. So the town has seen significant proposed budget increases in recent years, and especially this year, with potential tax hikes affecting homeowners and small business owners. Now that we're in budget deliberations for the next fiscal year, what specific steps would you take to control costs while maintaining essential services like public safety, roads, and schools?
That's a good one. I actually was here for some of those meetings. I haven't been here for the school budget, so I really don't know how to talk on that one that much right now. But as far as the town budget, one of the things I saw that came up was a one-liner, is they proposed that we have, I think, a $2.2 million budget for highways. Now, when they brought their chart out, they showed the increase in reliability of our road systems from 2019 to current. And we are pretty much we've been better now than we have in the last 6 years. So with that, this would be a good time to try to reel back a little bit on that side of that budget, just to bring back. So if they're going at 2.25, and if we even cut down even 750,000 there, that'd be a good chunk. If we need to get, another $2.3 million to get us flatline for the year across the board. So if we could even take off $750,000 right there, you know, that's a good start. And it would be a good place where it's not gonna have an impact on us losing anything, but more of a maintaining level. And maybe, you know, on the same time, the water pollution side, I feel like there's gotta be find a way to collaborate with some of our bigger vendors, really dial in, like, can we do an engineered evaluation and say, hey, do they actually use that much water and sewage? Can we free something up while we're trying to find a way to make more funds come available to make improvements to our sewer system, to try to make sure that we have the little bakery, the little small business in town that really actually brings a huge value to us?
I agree with that. So, my next question. So Killingly has opportunities for commercial and industrial development near the I-395 corridor exits. How do you encourage job-creating projects while at the same time protecting rural areas, residential neighborhoods, and water resources? Because there's a lot of upheaval of the way the zoning regulations were changed. And for example, the one on Westcott Road, when Walmart was being built, that was business park with, and it would have had to been changed to an industrial. But the zoning regulations were slowly evolved so that warehouses and large-scale distribution centers were allowed on that property. And I don't know if you're familiar with the magnitude of but there's a lot of concerns with a 30-acre building, not including all of the parking at the top of the land, 53 feet high. So I know you said so the people are at the top of the chain of command. So how would you handle something like that?
Well, first off, I mean, you know, we look at someone like that much space, right? You're gonna break down some of the simple math, right? Like water shut off in rain, right? Because you're gonna have to worry about all the contaminants and water that comes off it. So what they do the math is 1,000 square feet in 1 inch of rain is 600 gallons of water. I mean, do they have a plan for this runoff? And then when it's runoff on asphalt, is it really that clean? Do we have an infrastructure that puts regulations that dials them in of what we can and cannot do in that area? I mean, my uncle's property actually abuts that Markover Game Farm over up top there. Do they know they're next to, you know, a pheasant farm that's been there for 100 years? Are we gonna have problems with that? Can they be good neighbors? Like, I have to admit, I think Frito-Lay has been a good neighbor. They do a really good job of pretty much hiding it. I mean, if you didn't see the big sign out front, a lot of times you wouldn't even know it's there a lot of times. And they are a huge contributor to our taxes around here. But back to, people need to be informed too. If we're gonna allow zoning to be changed, we'd have to know that we're gonna be opening ourselves up to this, because we can't also put into ourselves a legal battle saying that, yes, here's our rules, you followed them, but we're still gonna tell you you can't have it. So we gotta be careful about that.
Go ahead. Yep.
How should the town address environmental risks such as dam safety, such as at the Killingly Pond, or PFAS, or other environmental contamination in wells? And what role do you think the town council should play in coordinating with state agencies as well as neighboring towns? Because Old Killingly Pond and the five ponds are all owned by the Wish Foundation.
Yeah, it's a dangerous situation right there, because you have a completely, they are allowed to drain them if they want to, because they own them. They could slowly bring them down till they're empty if they wanted to. I really feel like everybody that has been having the access to waterfront property, you'd have to find a way to create almost like an HOA to be able to keep those things funded, because as much as it's not a fun fact, but the fact is someone owns them, they don't have to keep them up. They just don't have to. They could let them drain out if they want to. And there's even an environmental rule that lets them slowly drain down as a maintenance program. If people want to keep that waterfront property, we got to find a way to fund it. And I don't think it should be on the backs of the entire town to fund that. I mean, look at Alexander's Lake. I mean, people pay a lot of money to stay in that property, even though maybe some people don't own it, but they still pay a lot of money and someone maintains all that.
Okay. Should the town council take a more active role in reviewing or influencing school spending proposals before they actually reach the voters at the budget, the referendum vote?
it's all about information at this point, right? How do we get to the public where all that money goes? All they do is see this big number, and no one's gonna read the 30 pages that it takes to break down what's in the budget for the school, right?
Actually, it's more than
It's,
30
it's
pages.
154.
What I'm getting at is,
Small
it's
print.
not the town budget that's, could be condensed to one page almost, what I'm getting at. How do we break it down so people can digest it?
I'm talking about the town council looking at the budget.
Right, but when it comes down to it, we gotta be able to put it into something that's understandable. Like, we were actually just looking at it before we got here, and the special education budget right off the bat is that biggest jump, right? It goes from 3 million last year to 5 million this year. All right, so why all of a sudden a $2 million increase on the special ed budget? And from what we can see, we only have 20 new special ed applicants. So I'd like to see some justification for that. I can't really wrap my head around $2 million for 20 students.
The real numbers.
Right, like where, how does that divide out?
All right, last question. Some residents feel that the town council, as well as boards and commissions, should be more transparent or accessible. What changes would you support to improve public engagement? This has been an issue for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's, pardon my French, shit or get off the pot one. I mean, no one shows up to these commissions. I've been on one. The 2 years that I was there for Permanent Building Commission, I'd never, just like everything else, you have to have public speakers, right? No one ever shows up, ever. And, you know, at the time, we were working with a $27 million budget on one project and a $30 million budget on another project. We're spending $50 million and no one's even around to even know where it goes. You know, we got roofers that we were dealing with that just like, we're not doing it. And no one backs our town up for that, you know, but, you know, warehouse goes in, everybody shows up for it, but we spend $50 million and no one's there. I don't know how to get that across to people to understand that when these projects are being put on, water pollution, how important it is to be involved with it. I don't know at what number, what dollar value do you have to put on it before someone says, hey, you know what, maybe I should show up and be involved.
Well, it took a lot of effort, word of mouth, to inform the community about the warehouses and the mega distribution center, because there were actually still some neighbors that hadn't even heard about it. So I think people actually didn't know that KMS was being renovated as new, or Westfield Ave is being renovated too. They just don't know.
I agree with you. I mean, the vote for that, in favor for that was only 250 people. I mean, that's how little showed up for that budget. But it was in the budget for that year, like when we went to the referendum for the budget for the year. We're like, we're staging this to do this, and we're gonna be paying off this part of the high school, so now that this part's paid off, we're gonna open up a new loan to do X. And they saw it then, but I just don't understand why people didn't show up. I wish I knew the magic wand for that.
I think a lot of us would like that.
Yeah.
How do we get the transparency? How do we get the public involved in a positive, well, either way,
Right, like this is on
you know,
Facebook right now, how many people are watching?
and, you know, we're
Does it
trying to
show up
get,
there?
you know, trying to get the people
It
involved,
should.
trying to get people to come to the podium, say, yes, you're doing a good job, maybe you're not doing a good job, or just, maybe here's a little help on how you can change things a little bit, but there's very little of that.
Yeah.
No matter who I try to talk to, come on forward, and it's difficult.
Yeah, I don't claim to have all the answers, but I would love to hear someone's input, you know? Maybe we can collaborate something even better.
You know, but it would be nice, like the sewer plant that's down the street. No one goes to those meetings. We've had a little bit here with the warehouses in Old Kinley Pond. You know, it's been a little more exposure.
Yep.
But like you're saying, when we're doing KMS, we're doing the community center, you know, it's $50 million and not much activity.
Nope.
And, go ahead.
Well, in defense of the residents, they do expect us to do the right thing, and it's just one meeting for you, but if they did attend all of the meetings of the boards and commissions, it is quite overwhelming to attend every single meeting.
I agree.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, I forgot you ran at one time. I forgot all about that.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Yep, I lost by like 40 votes. It wasn't even like a big landslide. It was just
yeah, but I was with Mr. Reynolds, who was on the permanent building committee there for those 2 years, and I'm still there. He's still dealing with Westfield Ave. It's not going very well. But I know Adam through that and outside of in public, so I don't have any problems with Adam.
Thank you.
Tony?
Thank you for coming forward, Adam. Appreciate it. Definitely, you're definitely seen the amount of time, you started a business, you've been successful. Again, Jen being president of the KBA. But, to be a business owner and put yourself out and put in this kind of time, it is a lot, so it does show a lot that you've already showed up, you're already involved in these things. It is a lot. It's a lot to know. It's overwhelming when you get on here. It's just learning all the processes are difficult. The state mandates. I mean, the town manager, the amount of information that he has in that head, I don't know how you keep it all straight. And then we're balancing a town here that we all love, that we want to keep. We know we need some development. We want it to be proper, but we want it to be rural. And I think people do get involved when it affects them. And I don't know how we get them to get involved with things that they're for and against. So you truly get the voice, So I would say that's, I like that the way you want to look at it and kind of, dissect it and pull it apart and feel out how you do get more engagement, because we get the most engagement usually when someone has opposition. It's very seldom that when we go to a meeting, it's usually one-sided. Sometimes it's even, but it's not a full voice. We don't get a full voice of what everyone in the town ever wants. There's 18,000 people, and but I just wanted to commend you on what you've already done. You're at a lot of events I see on social media, so it's impressive how many things you get to already.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Tammy.
So, yeah, I saw, I've seen you around in the last few weeks at different meetings and that, and we haven't scared you away, so that's always a good thing.
Not this guy.
And, I mean, you've even seen the beginning of the budget process, so, I mean, that hasn't scared you away, I think you're gonna be tough enough to handle the sometimes you need a flak jacket sitting here on the council, but, I think your skin's pretty thick. I think you have the right purpose, right focus, and it seems like you have the best interest of Killingly in mind. And
I put the best foot forward.
Yeah. So, well, good luck to you, and we'll see what happens. But I have no problem with Adam.
Thank you.
Anything else, Jonathan?
John, you gotta have something for me. Everybody else hit me up.
I mean, we had a nice time at the bar the other day, so that was, I got to know you.
Another fundraiser.
And this council does have a quota of bald men.
Yes. All right. So check.
So you'll fit right in with us, I
Yeah.
think, just fine.
Facial hair. Tony, come on now.
Yeah. We'll have a 5 bald man majority on this council, finally. I've been wanting that for
Perfect.
years.
I already feel a little left out.
Get out.
We can shave your head.
Anything else? So tonight, our interview, we will discuss next week. You'll be on the agenda. We'll discuss your position, and we will vote on it.
Okay.
I'm glad you came forward.
Thank you.
We have someone what actually has some experience on running throughout the town, going out, knocking door to door, the whole 9 yards. So you've been on boards and commissions, so I think you're uniquely qualified from my position that I like what I see.
All right. Thanks, Ed.
Okay? All right. Go ahead.
I'm getting the gist of everyone's conversation or whatever. And with budget season coming up, I make a motion to move the vote to tonight.
Is that possible to do?
I feel like there's something in the rules of procedure that sets up the special meeting, regular meeting rhythm for interviewing at one meeting and then appointing at the next. And this came up, I believe, in the fall when we did an interview and someone tried to appoint at the special meeting. And the rules of procedure were called up.
So I think, okay, no,
We're not voting on anything, we're just listening to the town and the BOE budgets on Thursday, which we've already heard.
So,
okay, so next week we will deliberate and we'll have a vote next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Moving on, meeting with Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss the impact approach to the new housing legislation. Yeah, Kevin, I was kind of thinking about that. It was gonna be on the agenda for next week. And I said, we better have at least an interview today in the event. Oh.
We try our best.
Ed, does it help when we have a bald member? Does it help because we got a bald member?
I'm working on it. On myself, but. So, tonight, good evening, council members. Tonight, I'm presenting an overview, a very brief overview of Public Act 25-1. Ashley says I have 10 minutes. She's gonna get a hook. So, I have 10 slides. I'm gonna try my best.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yep. So, Public Act 25-1 is a comprehensive piece of housing legislation passed late last year in the middle of the night. This presentation will cover the new state mandates and how they directly impact our local zoning authority here in Killingly, and the timeline we must follow to remain in compliance and take advantage of available state incentives. Next slide. At a high level, this act fundamentally shifts how municipalities handle housing growth. It creates a new level of state agency oversight, primarily through the Office of Policy of Management and a newly established Council of Housing and Development. The rollout is phased. Several procedural rules took effect on January 1st of this year, while the most substantial changes to our zoning regulations will take effect on July 1st of this year. Several mandates are already effective. First, because Killingly falls in the 15,000 to 25,000 population bracket, we are legally required to establish or join a fair rent commission. Second, the rules for neighborhood protest petitions against zone changes have relaxed, essentially have gone away. But it now requires a simple majority to pass a zone change against a petition, and petitioners must own 50% of the abutting land to file. Third, we can no longer impose stricter zoning standards on HUD-approved manufactured homes than we do on traditional single-family homes. We can still enforce our mobile home requirements for the mobile home parks, but not a house is a house, essentially, because of the update. Yeah. Finally, there is a permanent statewide ban on hostile architecture in our public spaces. This also includes transient individuals in public spaces, and that's a different conversation for another day. Just briefly on fair rent commissions, they are established under the general statute to control harsh and unconscionable rent increases, enforce land tenant laws. They receive and investigate complaints, can set fair rent, enforceable regulations, and conduct hearings. They can be shared between towns. There may be an opportunity between our town and Plainfield, who is also recently tapped for that requirement. Next slide. Looking ahead to July 1st, we face two major restrictions. First, we can no longer maintain a fixed numerical cap on the total number of dwelling units allowed across the entire town. That's not something we do, but that is something other towns have done. We can, however, still control density on a parcel-by-parcel basis using standard metrics like setbacks and lot coverage. Second, the state has is heavily restricting our ability to require off-street parking for residential use. We essentially cannot deny any residential application solely due to lack of parking unless we can prove a specific, unmitigated threat to public health or safety. Municipal-wide unit caps, I kind of touched on that already, so we can go next slide. Also hitting July 1st is the middle housing mandate. Despite the confusing transit name, this mandate applies universally. We must allow residential buildings of 2 to 9 units on any lot currently zoned for commercial or mixed use. Crucially, these must be permitted by what is called, the state is calling summary review. From a practical standpoint, this summary review can be construed as a site plan review application. That's somewhat debated as well, but meaning approval is granted as of right through your zoning officer or through your land use commission. Typically going to the land use commission, either being handled by them as a site plan review or being deferred to staff. This means if the application meets our written standards without a there is no opportunity for public hearing in that process. Because of this lack of discretionary review, it is highly recommended that we adopt specific object design criteria or form-based code into our regulations beforehand to hopefully control the development style and ensure these buildings fit into Killingly's community character. While this mandate limits our traditional review process, there is a strategic silver lining. Any middle housing units built under this rule will earn Killingly housing unit equivalent points or HUE points. This can help the town qualify for an 830G moratorium. That process is claimed to have been streamlined in this bill. Historically, has been almost impossible to achieve a moratorium when you're under the 10%. HUE points are extremely complicated. I'm not going to go into them tonight. That's for a later date.
Have they reevaluated where Killingly is currently?
I believe there was a recent updated number. We're still at the 9% range. It's 9 and change. It's like 9.3, I think, percent. They did release an updated number. They don't release all the metrics in terms of how they aggregate that number fully. So, but there is a number that was put out.
Yes, I do know they have a screwy calculation, such as elderly housing only counts as half a unit.
Yeah, there's a lot of items in that system for the affordable housing and whether or not it truly provides true affordable housing and how it's accounted for. Simply, it's a broken system. But unfortunately, it's up to the state, I think, to do that. But I'm happy to submit testimony in that process. Building on the fact that summary review acts as a site plan review application, the commission must recognize that through zoning, the zoning officer will have zero discretionary power to deny a project based on subjective design preferences. To control the development style and protect Killingly's character, we must act before July 1st to adopt highly specific, formulaic architectural and landscaping standards into our regulations. We do have some examples that we're hoping to bring forward. By codifying objective rules for roof pitches, exterior wall breaks, landscaping, etc., we will retain local control over these buildings' architectural design. Additionally, we should utilize the Act's exemption to prohibit ground floor residential uses in mixed-use buildings with more than 10 units, ensuring our street-level commercial districts remain vibrant.
Next slide.
This is just touching a little bit on some optional tools, and I want to use an example on this, but the legislation does offer some optional planning tools. We can create up to 2 conservation and traffic mitigation districts with OPM approval. In these specific overlay zones, we regain slightly more control over parking requirements for smaller developments. We can also voluntarily establish a priority housing development zone, allowing for multifamily housing as of right on at least 10% of our developable land. The main incentive here is that it makes it mathematically easier for the town to achieve a 4-year moratorium for 830G affordable housing appeals. There's some logistics involved in something like that, because particularly when we are talking about our sewer moratorium, though. So I'm not seeing that second tool being a viable option currently. These are just tools, but as an example for the conservation and traffic mitigation districts would be an area within the borough of Danielson, particularly the central business district. As written right now, our main control for residential apartments is the requirement for 2 off-street parking spots for each unit above the second floor, or above the first floor. Since we can no longer deny an application simply based off, a residential application simply based off parking, it means essentially the sky's the limit in the central business district as the way it's written. So it will be suggested some controls there, but that mitigation district, we're allowed to designate a certain, up to 4% of the town. There's a way to calculate that through the process. Next slide. The Act replaces our existing affordable housing plans with a new housing growth plan regime. These new plans require much more rigorous coordination. They must align with our local and regional plans of conservation and development, as well as our local sewer plans. That would be the sewer avoidance. They must also explicitly inventory our developable land and map out the specific zones where housing can be approved via the summary review process. Complying with this plan will unlock state infrastructure grants and a 5% bonus for school construction reimbursements. I'm not sure if the state has funded that, but it's in the bill. Next slide.
Probably
Yep. This is our roadmap. Our immediate priority this spring is to draft and adopt objective design standards for middle housing before the July 1st deadline strips our discretionary review powers. Over the next year, our Regional Council of Governments will issue our recommended housing goals. And finally, Killingly, first official housing growth plan must be submitted to the state by June 1st of 2028. Last slide here. A major decision the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission will face in the summer of 2027 is how we want to handle the creation of our housing growth plan. By June 2027, our Regional Council of Governments will hand us a recommended affordable housing goal. From that moment, we have exactly 30 days to decide whether to opt into a broader regional plan or opt out and write our own in-house municipal plan. If we opt in, the COG does the heavy lifting on preparing the application, which will ultimately require sign-off from the town manager and the Planning and Zoning Commission. If we opt out and build an in-house plan, we retain maximum local control over the document and can establish our own alternative goals. However, a critical factor for the council to consider is funding. The state is providing financial resources directly to the COGs to facilitate this regional planning process, but they are not providing planning funds to the individual towns. Therefore, if Killingly chooses to opt out and draft an in-house plan, it will effectively be an unfunded mandate that we must absorb using our own local staff time and municipal budget. Finally, it is important to note that whichever path we choose, Killingly will still be responsible for holding local public hearings, submitting an annual progress report directly to the Office of Policy Management. And the only other aspect of it is OPM does have final say on the plan. So they can choose to reject the COGS plan. They could choose to reject the town's plan. There's a little bit more involved in the municipal-led plan, but we're a little early in the process because OPM is just now starting to issue some guidelines, but we don't know the full content of what is supposed to be in that plan.
And how much experience does the COG actually have in making up these plans?
They do other plans, but each COG is different. Some are planning powerhouses, some are reestablishing, I think, their programs and services. So they claim.
But given the sewer moratorium, we're in a bind.
Yeah.
We're also, as he stated, the affordable, the housing board underneath this should have been started in January. So we're a little bit behind on that. That's something that the town council has to look at. That's another commission, Board of Commission. And as he said, it's also something that we can work with Plainfield on. But that's something that you'd have to look at with the attorneys to move forward with that. And we have something that's happening on July 1st. So, and like he said, we do have some drafts from our own attorneys.
So right now in the bill, there's, as long as a plan is adopted and we provide the annual reports that there's efforts to be working towards different elements of the plan, there's no stick component. But choosing not to adopt a plan, that's where the stick is. And that it would be denial of funding, similar to if we didn't pass like a plan of conservation and development. They seem to be eyeing the schools, though, in the bill.
If we didn't have the sewer moratorium and we developed the abandoned mills, would that?
So I mean,
I'm just throwing.
The mills as written right now in the mud zone, and we can turn over to some of the commission members, but in the principal structure in the mill, the limiting factor is the building code and the fire code. If you take away the sewer end of it, for the principal structure, there in our mud regulations, we do a density requirement for other buildings if they want to do. I think we've had proposals for condos and various other out structures, but the principal structure is what the building can support. I think an important factor, though, is the environmental lift on those buildings and everything that's involved with them. But the sewer issue is limiting that ability to tap those. One good project, particularly with funding, could probably bring us well past our 10%.
The other thing you have to realize is it's all private property. They want us to designate zones, they want us to designate places, but if you do not have a private property owner who's willing to deal with the town or work with the town or is interested in a development like this, you can name whatever parcel you want, but it may not happen.
So you would have to get the private property person to understand all this, to want to sign on to something that is not fully developed.
Right.
Yep. People have been calling and asking questions about this. It's not a secret that the state passed this law, and I think people are generally aware. But even without this law, our mill zones for the mill properties that chose to adopt into that mud regulations, they have viability based off of the zoning to do a conversion. There is a lot involved in a conversion. We've seen that in neighboring towns, what can happen if certain elements are breezed over. But we have had at least one mill get redeveloped. But to make it environmentally safe and to really do that process, it was around the time I think I started, it was already pretty much approved at that point, but we're breaking ground. That mill had to get completely demolished and a lot of environmental work. And even though I believe those units do count generally, not all, but they generally count towards our affordable housing number, if you work out the math, they cost over $400,000 per unit to build. And that's probably putting it low. I know the original people involved eventually went out of business.
You have to get some sort of government subsidy to do what they want you to do.
But that's not there. That is,
I think it should be noted too, that I think we only have one mud building left, right? Prim? Is Prim part of mud, or? did
Prim would be one, Bailey Hill
Bailey Hill, I think.
and
would be-
Blueville.
Well, yeah, but they're gone, the buildings are gone.
The buildings are gone.
So
They
by
would have,
regulation,
Prim's pretty much
the
gone.
regulations count on the buildings being there and being renovated in order to take advantage of mud.
Yeah,
So-
there's-
So now the regulations actually gotta readdress that at some point.
That's possible, yeah, or they would, if someone were to look to develop it, I think under the regs as written, they would have to build a principal structure in the likeness of the original mill, or utilizing the
that.
full, the original footprint.
Yeah, so the only two existing structures besides Prim is Sanzuzzi's Mill and Atawagan, and there used to be the old La Rosa down here on,
Series.
it's
Siri
Siri
Wire.
Wire down here.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're both industrial. They never took advantage of mud,
That's true.
so.
But if you reclassified,
If those owners were interested, I think a reclassification or a map change could be something that the Planning and Zoning Commission would consider. It's a public hearing process and everything with that, but.
yeah, but we're looking at environmental remediation. Supposedly there's some funding, maybe. So we
Well,
have
that's what's
these,
taking care of Blueville.
What's
And
that?
That's what's going on with Blueville
Yep.
and
Bailey.
Bailey Hill, right? You know, some environmental from Yukon that,
Yukon is involved, EPA is involved in those. You have property owners that are either working with or somewhat not fighting that process and allowing that work to occur. Other mills are more problematic, as you could guess. But there are some that are also exploring options. I think, they are large buildings, they're part of our history, for Killingly. And, we don't want to get woken up at, 2, 3 in the morning to hear that, a project that had funding and had traction to get housing and historical renovation is on fire. And, unfortunately, we've experienced
that's
that
what
multiple
we've seen,
times.
and, right, it's been. Yeah, go ahead.
So, without much changes, we still have to establish the Fair Rent Commission?
Correct.
Yes.
And you're suggesting that maybe that's something we should do with Plainfield?
I think
It's a possibility.
Plainfield does have, there's angel communities, and they might be exempt from certain elements of this act. But Plainfield also is a municipality, they're right next door to us, that just got pushed into that bracket. They lowered the threshold, so that's what brought Killingly and Plainfield in.
So both towns would have to establish this Fair Rent Commission or combine together?
Yeah, there's a real opportunity for a partnership, I think, there.
But I look at this as a little bit of a slippery slope. You bring in more housing because the state wants us to have more housing. And you bring in more housing, you bring in more children, and that's more education.
Yep.
And that puts you in the situation of either expanding your total school system and especially your special ed numbers. So your credits that you're gonna get for bringing in the housing, we don't know what they are exactly.
That's true.
So we don't know whether that really offsets what we need to help us with a sewer treatment plant or to actually help us bring in more industry at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's a delicate balance. I think, Mr. Reynolds talked about that in his interview, that, if You do have municipalities that are completely lifted by the tax burden of residents. You have municipalities, and we're fortunate, we have a lot of industrial partners and stakeholders in town. I think many of them would like to expand. They would like to invest in their facilities. Sewer moratorium is stopping them from being able to do that. We have infill. Everyone talks about infill. We want to see more infill. This bill, I wrote opposition to it, I can tell you that. But that bill coming in does allow, in certain areas, some opportunities for some of those property owners to tap into levels of infill. Infill has, renovation work is very expensive, can be complicated, but there are, we know, there's storefronts, there's buildings that, are underutilized. There's some expectation of connectivity on some of those in some cases, and again, that goes back to that sewer moratorium. Where do we, if just this main street here is reactivated and fully, populated, we're going to have issues with the sewer plant. At least the way the WPCA has, described it to us. So that's a concern. So it's a delicate balance. We all live in town. So I pay, the sewer bills, and I think they've gone up, about 80, 90% since I started paying them when I first moved here. They will keep going up. But there is a balance. You do get, if you get new businesses in, and I know that's not what some people want to hear, there's a balance to that in some cases. But investment, even in just the existing, businesses and infrastructure, but residential development solely is not going to lift our tax burden. It will not. Just the, if you have a standard subdivision that gets developed, the taxes paid in the general lifetime of those structures don't even cover the road maintenance. And then you pile onto it the school and everything else. And so it's a delicate act to follow, and I don't envy your guys' decision on that. And that's a lot of this, when we're talking about certain things with funding, that's the role of your guys. So of how we propose the budget and ultimately how we can do this stuff. But as far as, the regulations and stuff, we're just trying to create the tools to promote that private investment in some parts, but also protecting everyone's quality of life here as well.
One of the issues that we have is we don't even know what our number is yet. Okay, OPM, our number of how many, it's no longer a percentage of your units have to be affordable. They're giving us a definitive number. OPM is giving it to the COGS, and the COGS are dividing it out amongst the towns. We have no idea what that number is going to be. We do not know if we already have, we don't.
I believe there's an opportunity for us to challenge the number,
Right.
ultimately. But again, this is untested water, so we're not sure how OPM will deal with it. I think even this bill that got passed was kind of a stripped out version of a previous bill that OPM wrote opposition against, saying that they didn't have the capacity to oversee it. So the state is going to have a lot of stuff to do on this.
Wasn't there someone on the state who retired said that this is one of the worst bills ever?
I've heard that from some very respected legal counsel people, not ones that represented the town, but were part of the same law firm that represents the town, that have written most of our land use manuals for the state.
So we have many developments that have been they've been approved, but they've not been built for a long, long time. Do you know how many units that is, and do any of them qualify as affordable units?
So affordable units, when we're talking about the approval, most projects, unless they had a condition of deed restrictions, just that proposal, like say if that had some outside funding, I don't think will qualify them for being affordable. it's really gonna come down to the construction funds. So if they utilize, HUD housing or some other, state or federal funding, they could qualify as being affordable. As far as the total number, I don't know it off the top of my head, but we have a variety of, some of the mill, properties that had condos, had developments inside the mills that were approved. Some of them still have active and valid site plans. Some of them only have special permit approval at this point, meaning that the site plan, the use is approved, but the site plan needs to be resubmitted. That is an interesting dynamic when we talk about the sewer moratorium and whether or not there's an expectation for them to utilize that or not. Does it, walk into a taking or, any of that stuff? But I would leave that for the lawyers.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things like that we have to, again, figure out. And also underneath the way it was currently is that basically for it to become affordable, there had to be some sort, as he said, government subsidy, or there had to be a 40-year requirement that you're gonna keep it affordable. Now, one of the things that they were going for is they were going for accessory dwelling units, or what we call secondary dwelling units. But we could not bring it upon ourselves to say that you would have to put a 40-year requirement on that when you are, and I'm gonna use John as an example, he built a unit for his parents. Units like that are over $100,000. I can't ask a private person to put a 40-year restriction on it. I just don't feel that's fair, especially when they're trying to do the right thing for a family.
Yeah, I know when we looked at deed restrictions, there's a lot of talk about deed restrictions, and years ago when we were in that slipping, right, from that 10%, I had looked at Windham County as a whole, and none of the towns that the reported number were deed restricted properties. They were all just private funding, or having those federal funding, state funding, or the majority of which, and the real reason we slipped under the number was USDA loans or first-time homebuyer loans. If someone refinanced their loan to a traditional mortgage,
Went away.
it went away. But the property owner who came in 20 years, 30 years ago, probably wouldn't qualify. Maybe they're making way too much at this point. Their unit was always counted as affordable as long as they didn't refinance or sell. So it's a broken system if you're really trying to look at the true number of what's affordable units, because they only roughly track your income for the first 10 years if you do, say, first home buyer.
And it's also broken when they only count elderly, and I know there's people with disability living in the half a unit. So I guess they're only half a person.
Yeah.
I do have a question. On the Fair Rent Commission, and you have to join or create one.
Mm-hmm.
What is the intent? What does that do? What is the oversight of the Fair Rent Commission?
So there appears to be a little bit of an overlap in some of the stuff that we already do with our rental standards and apartment level inspections when we get certain complaints, either ourselves or, like, say, the health department. But an individual can bring a complaint to that board, and it works like a housing court, where they can investigate the complaint. They can try to mediate between the landlord and the individual. They speak to enforceable regulations in the sense of housing codes. One concerning part was they can set what they deem to be a fair rent. So I think in creating or joining a board, I think you have to have people that are realistic in terms of, a private individual renting, a property, and, their ability to set somewhat of a fair rent, right? Based off supply and demand. But this board appears to have a lot of authority over that. And I would be concerned that could become a slippery slope. I think that was one of the points that was brought up in some of our opposition to the bill.
So so we had talked earlier when Adam was doing his interview about the like downtown, and I always felt like a town. You want to become the people that walk on the street. You want it to be the town that you want it to be safe, and. So these are just things that you hear. I'm not saying that this is factual information. If someone came in and let's say, and this is tough because if someone owns 5 multifamily homes in Danielson and they sell to a larger conglomerate that comes in and buys them, and these may have been, this is where I find a lot of people I know that have younger children that are getting out of either high school or college, and I think it's very difficult for them to afford a 1-bedroom apartment in Danielson. Which is, I've always found is kind of a baseline for me of what I think is if you work 40 hours anywhere. And if you worked at Benny's, those folks all owned homes at one point. And that's to me is, I wouldn't say it's completely a baseline job, but it's somewhat a baseline job. Would this do anything to, someone comes in from a large group like that and buys 5 homes and says, we're gonna remodel them. And they were at an affordable rent. Let's say it was a 1-bedroom was $1,200. And then they rent them all HUD because they can get $1,550. And that may eliminate a young person that's going to walk on our streets, that's going to spend money, that's going to contribute.
Yeah.
Not that I'm against the HUD program. I'm not. That's not the point. Does this do anything to is that a complaint you could make? Does it remedy it, or can I just say? And again, it's tough because I'm not saying that I want someone that makes a private investment to control what they do. That's hard. But I've seen that happen, and I've had people say, that I was told they're going to remodel, I had to move out, and then it's gone to someone else.
So their full authority is set in statute. So it's Connecticut General Statute 7-148B through F are the areas that are pointed to. I haven't read through all of their full scope because it was more of a footnote in our stuff, but they are there to receive complaints of like a harsh increase, something that's completely unreasonable. We have seen larger companies come in and buy up apartment buildings, buy up individual ones, and that has been a complaint that has been received. I've seen in our office where somebody might have lived in that unit for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're seeing the first time ever a rate increase. And what is harsh and what isn't, I think that's what that board's for them to look at. I can say many of them had deferred maintenance on those. And so if you have someone coming in and making an investment in, to that, there is a balance. We don't want, tenement housing or slums or anything like that. Like that's part of the reason the town passed, our rental standards in the past, and we try to the ordinances require inspections of all apartments in town prior to renting. And we've told people, usually it's unfortunately after they've had a bad experience, but that's a document that they should ask for before renting a house. They should be able to provide a paper that says that it's been inspected by the building official or the fire marshal. And it's super vent against price gouging but I'm not sure how efficient or realistic they are in their enforcement.
We're still waiting for a lot of information to come out from OPM. And it's gonna come out piecemeal by piecemeal.
Yeah, but you're gonna meet a requirement
Right.
and you do not have
The proper
what you
information.
need.
Yeah. The only thing we can focus on right now would be that middle housing end of it. And then we have to wait.
To get our number. And then if we don't agree with that number, we can write, I think it has to be our town manager, can write a letter to OPM and say, we don't agree with it, this is what we feel. Actually, it goes to OPM, it goes to the COGS, and then from the COGS, it comes to us. So our letter would be to the COG. Like, say, if the COG tells us we have to have, and I'm just picking a number out of the sky, say I had to do an extra 100 units, we say, no, we can only really do realistically 65, we have to explain to them why. And then they either agree with us or don't agree with us, and then both of it still has to go to OPM. But even if we do our own private plan, it still has to go to the COG, and then it has to go to OPM. and OPM has the final approval.
There's caps in it where they're only supposed to allot us a percentage of our existing housing stock in the number. We're fearful that we might, being a larger municipality with infrastructure and other things, they might try to lump a large number here, regardless of our sewer rent. There's possible, because of that, there's possible opportunities for grants and other things to go towards the sewer plant. What the funding sources for those are, what the viability of those are, I have no idea. I think we're all gonna learn together on those, unfortunately.
But looking for grant funding, where, there's a lot of strings attached to that, though.
There can
And
be.
what is the grant, the extent of the grant?
Is there a match? Is there a required match?
Yeah.
All those sort of things go through. What's your reporting?
But then you have to look at,
Do you have to establish a certain type of zoning overlay district that's in this, you know, in terms of a transit style of development? Do you give up different, you know, more elements of, you know, local control in that process? So it's something that we're watching and continually doing trainings on, but we've noticed in just going from one training 1 week to a different training another, just a slight differences, and that slight differences or that level of interpretation in the bill can trigger different things, and that the bill is not well written. There is the drafters of it are already looking to make modifications to it, and that could change even the information we're giving to you tonight.
And even those modifications, even then, we have more bills coming down through the state because they're presenting it, and even the people that wrote this bill saying, we just got this bill passed, let's correct this bill, make this better before you put anything else. So, we're watching.
What about those towns in Wyndham County that do not want to have any more housing? Then they could actually transfer those credits to a town that would accept it?
I don't think transfer of development rights type of thing is in this. If I was looking at it from as written right now, advising them as a planner, I would say they should pass a plan, but there doesn't appear to be a downfall of not fulfilling said plan. There's not currently, the way it's written, we have to pass a plan, but, you know, like Anne Marie said, we don't own the properties. So unless we're in the business of, you know, building the units, you know, all of a sudden you wanna put a lot of money towards our housing authority to, you know, add more units over there, which, you know, I think some people would like, but some people wouldn't. You know, that's the only real control you have, other than creating, you know, fair zoning that allows for that private investment, but it has to be realistic and it has to be respectful of, you know, the neighbors and the people that are here. But, you know, to Tony's point, we have you know, people with kids. I have 3 kids. As they grow up, you know, I want them to, you know, live around me, you know, to be able to be here and be able to afford a home or at least an apartment. And the way things are going, I don't know how that will work. So
you mentioned the housing authority.
Mm-hmm.
Do those people,
that counts towards our total.
Only half.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we have 200 units, they only count 100.
Yeah.
that's, I mean, so we're creating, we already have something, we're creating more.
Yeah.
But we only get,
Well, I mean, and without getting too into the weeds
No.
with it, you have one of the largest generations of homeowners, the baby boomers, that are actively aging out of their homes, looking to sell them, downsize them.
No place to go?
No place to go. So you're going to have push on those types of, you know, facilities, like trying to get more of those, but it opens up, you know, all these other homes, some with neglect, you know, deferred maintenance, Others that, people want to go in for, I think, I know the bill was passed with a claim of an emergency, at 2 or 3 in the morning. But realistically, I think there will be, in the not too distant future, a surplus of housing that's coming in. It might not be ideal in what people that are in their, just entering into that housing market in their 20s and 30s looking to purchase, but I think that it's going to be opening up. You have a large contingent of homeowners that are looking for other options, downsizing, like my parents did, and selling their home to another family, or moving on. In terms of retirement, the state of Connecticut doesn't have the most friendly estate planning rules, so a lot of people go to Florida and other places. But I think we're over 10 minutes. So, and I know there's other presentations tonight.
Yeah.
And I
No,
asked-
you're
asked-
allowed,
so-
Well, you went through your slides in 10 minutes, so you
Yeah.
were good. Any other questions?
It's
But
just,
even, you start looking at fair rent, but
I would suggest guidance from your town attorney on that process, on what really needs to be in there, because there's strict requirements in terms of the bylaws and how they get posted on, I believe on the website, and which we do for all our boards and commissions, but there's some requirements in there and stuff, and we just want to make sure, ideally, I think the town as a whole, if we have to establish it, it just needs to be established correctly.
But if we do not do anything,
Talk to the town attorney.
Yeah, I
Just
would.
talk to the town attorney.
I would be concerned whether or not on certain elements in this bill, if we don't do it, and then we're going for that grant, for instance, for our sewer plant, it could be, it could be the reason that the state says no.
see, that's, again, that sewer plant is, we need.
But it would be the same thing for our schools, which rely, on that level of investment, or other programs, LoSiP and,
It's
town
all
aid
the
roads and.
Yeah, discretionary funding. And that covers, that's a very large umbrella. So we need to talk to our town attorney, we need to make sure we do all our steps. And I'm comfortable because our town attorney was one of the people that gave the presentations. So, they're on top of it.
but it's just another package of legislation coming out of Hartford that wasn't well thought out, that they pushed through.
Yep.
And now they're gonna have to backtrack and try to fix it.
I actually received an email from a housing coalition saying, tell your representatives to vote for this bill. And I asked them for a copy of the bill, and they said they had not seen one yet. So I'm like, I'm not telling anybody to vote for anything if I can't read it.
Did this bill favor any particular municipalities?
There.
Or areas of legislative jurisdiction?
There is some interesting calculations built into the bill for what they're coining angel communities that don't have to meet certain requirements. And I believe Hartford, East Hartford, and some other areas don't have to meet those requirements. But interestingly enough, Plainfield, I believe, was in there. I think Brooklyn was also in there.
Plainfield, and Sterling were Wyndham County, and Wyndham itself.
It's an interesting system. It was based off of the available units, the median income, the unemployment percentage. So I would imagine even that will fluctuate.
And as far as writing plans, again, that will be up if you want to go through NECOG or go through us, but we have written the affordable housing plan and we have written a POCD, so.
So okay, let's go out. How do I get the public to come over there for your planning and zoning meeting and question this?
So I mean, the state passed the bill, right? So we're just more in the position of trying to make the best of it.
Right, no, but I mean.
If regardless of the process, if it is through the COG or through the town, there has to be public meetings, there has to be outreach. That's important, to do. I know just internally, not talking about any particular applications, we've been trying to, make more notifications on when meetings are, when there's public hearings. But, there's minimum requirements from the state, in terms of, newspapers and whether or not people are reading them. But will we see more investment or more comment on some of the more recent applications? But there's always people that are blissfully ignorant. Some people don't care about things, and they have their own focus. They have their own lives. They feel an application maybe is not affecting them until it is, right? And then some of our best board and commission members came here because they had an issue or saw a project they didn't like. The same thing for even council members. There sometimes is that catalyst moment that will get people involved, but we can't force them to come. So it's a balancing act. I mean, you guys have meetings sometimes and there's no one here. And there's 2 people watching on Facebook, and I know it counts the booth as one, and I'm watching at home. So it's hard to get that level of engagement.
But what you've realized, even with the level of engagement, we need to pass a plan somewhere along the line, be it through us or through NECOG, and we need to have some sort of designation, or we will lose discretionary funding. And then when you don't have the funding to do something, that's when the crowd will come up.
I will touch on quickly, but again, I think Ashley's mad we're over 10 minutes. So I will, in terms of outreach.
She's getting there, John.
Larger cities and larger municipalities have, designated either social media teams, dedicated personnel to do that, type of work, to do outreach, or public relations, where maybe they're not the staff person, for instance, of like a land use board, where they can go out and speak unbiasedly about the facts and not be construed to be putting their thumb on the scales, for instance. So you see that in larger towns and cities, and to varying degrees. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, but it takes funding to do that. A lot of it ends up, many of us, like I have access, I think, to all the social media for the most part for the town, but we're not actively replying to comments on there. We have various boards and commissions that have their own pages, and we try to encourage our volunteers to be involved and to answer those questions, but there's only so many hours in the day.
And it was passed in the middle of the night. And how many people know the first bill that wasn't passed negated all inland wetlands and watercourse protections and said that developers can come in and do whatever they wanted?
It's true. So if that's it.
I don't know, you guys are running,
Yeah.
I don't even know what to ask.
I think, as we start to work towards regs, or tightening up of some of those design-based standards, the Planning and Zoning Commission would be the place, to go. But we're gonna, try to make sure all the commission members are informed and we can vote on it. And so, no one thinks we're passing it in the middle of the night, but we do meet at 7:00. So we'll go from there.
Well, we definitely would want the control to stay in the town and not to go to the state or the COG.
And that's gonna be, a call, I think, by the council, and planning and zoning, in partnership. But that, I think ultimately we have to look at what we get for requirements.
Yep.
And then make that call. But I understand your sentiment on that.
I mean, 830G, in the early 80s, 50 years, and it hasn't done a thing. So
Agreed.
more legislation, that's not gonna do anything except give everybody a headache.
Well, you don't have to worry about the 2 in the morning, because that would be an illegal meeting, because we have that time limit, so, yeah.
No, we keep extending, right? You know, there's no absolute. I mean, you can leave. I mean, you have an excuse that you could get out of it. But I mean, yeah.
But
Planning and zoning ends at 11, that's it.
But if anyone has questions about the bill or anything, I'm here Monday through Friday, Anne-Marie as well. So we're happy to talk to council members or anyone from the public that has any questions about the bill. We'll try to answer them.
So we've read both bills, the one that didn't pass and this one, and we've gone to at least 2, if not 3.
3 trainings.
3 trainings on it, so. It's
But
not
I'm
pretty.
gonna get the question that I'm the one that's supposed to understand all of this. That's what I get. I'm supposed to understand, as you know, when I was talking to you guys earlier, that
We're paid to be
Delegate.
here.
I can't.
So
I
Delegate.
try.
we're happy to help.
So, you know, come on down, come on to the podium when you have your meeting, ask the question, and then, in a
Okay.
polite way, let's do it in a polite circumstance, you know.
Very informative. I'm waiting to see what the next drop of the shoe is going to do to us.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it's all going to change. It certainly changed many years ago when they promised us if we made our 10%, they would give us 10% more on our road funding. They never came through. I'd like to see guarantees when they throw that out there.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see, where am I here? Okay, next up, presentation from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in the Northeast District Department of Health regarding the PFAS testing program in Rogers. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Appreciate the invitation. And I take it you enjoy challenging topics. So
Do we have a choice?
we are here to oblige. Oh, I'm sorry. One at a time.
No worries.
Okay. Sorry, we will be a little more than 10 minutes. I'll just get that out there right off the bat. Good evening, folks. Again, we really appreciate the invitation to speak with you this evening. My name is Ray Freegon. I am the Director of Connecticut Deep's Remediation Division. I'm joined by Megan Lally. Megan is our PFAS coordinator. On the line today, we have 3 of our colleagues, Tiziana Shea, Shannon Pochu, and Gita DeHall, all from Deep's Remediation Division. Before we get into the matter at hand, PFAS, just a very quick overview, and I think about what our division does, and a little bit of this will tie into some of our previous conversation this evening. So our division is responsible for overseeing the environmental investigation and regulating the cleanup of polluted properties in the state of Connecticut. As such, we deal with a wide variety of properties, including brownfield properties, the old mill properties that need environmental investigation, cleanup before they can be redeveloped. Our primary mission is protecting human health and the environment through the investigation and cleanup of these polluted properties, which brings us to today's topic, PFAS. This emerging contaminant, we'd like to share a little bit of detail about what it is, why we're here in your town in the Rogers section looking for PFAS in the environment, and a little summary of what we've been finding and our next steps. With that, I'll turn over to Megan.
Okay. So as Ray said, my name is Megan Lally. Thank you for having us here today. And Ray already gave a great intro, so I think we can move on to the next slide. I'm not sure how that works. There's a man in the booth that's gonna, thank you. Perfect. All right, so we wanted to start with a quick overview of PFAS, just to make sure, you know, this might be information that's already familiar to you all, but we don't want to make any assumptions, you know, either of the council or of anyone listening. So quickly, PFAS, it's an acronym. It stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. It's a mouthful, so we usually just say PFAS for short. It's essentially a group or family of chemicals. There's thousands of them. We typically are measuring on the order of 30 to 40 of them when we're looking at PFAS in either drinking water or environmental media. They're all man-made. There's no naturally occurring PFAS. They started becoming regularly produced back in the 1950s, so they've been around for some time. And they are characterized by this general common trait where they have a carbon chain at their core that's surrounded by fluorine atoms. And that's significant because that bond between the carbon and fluorine is one of the strongest bonds in nature. It's incredibly hard to break down, and that's why they have the nickname of forever chemicals. So some of the larger molecules can break down into smaller PFAS molecules, but essentially it's very difficult to break down those smaller PFAS molecules. For today's conversation, importantly, in terms of drinking water, you won't know that you have PFAS in your drinking water just based on the way it looks or tastes. They're colorless, they're odorless, they're tasteless. So the only way to really know if you have PFAS in your drinking water is to directly test for it. They are of growing concern because there's an increasing body of literature that suggests that they could have health implications through long-term exposure. I have a little caveat at the bottom of the slide that although health is critical to DEEP's mission, our staff, we're not health experts. So we do have partners on board. I know Luigi was back there. So we're working closely with the local health district. We also have staff at the Department of Public Health available to answer health-related questions. I'll speak a little bit more to that in a second. Generally speaking, the main ways that the public can be exposed to PFAS is through either contaminated drinking water or consumer products are also a significant source of PFAS exposure. So when we think of things that are grease-proofed, fire-proofed, stain-repellent, any products that are advertised with those, you know, kind of labeling, historically probably had some PFAS elements added to them to attribute those properties to the products. And that's significant because a lot of this stuff goes down our drains, essentially. So in an area like Killingly, where, yes, there's some sewer, but there's also a lot of septic, we are likely putting PFAS down our drain every day through either laundering of clothes, through use of personal care products like soaps and shampoos and things like that. So we are throughout the state finding areas where there are low levels of PFAS in the groundwater and there's not really a clear source. And we're beginning to think that it could be due to that septic contamination because these systems aren't designed to destroy PFAS. So once it's in the septic system, it has the chance to leach out into the groundwater and particularly in areas that are more densely developed. You know, your well is hopefully, you know, not down gradient of your septic, but your neighbors might be. So there's potential for general contamination in the area. But on the right of the slide are some of the places where, you know, PFAS might come from within the environment. Obviously, well, maybe not obvious. It's obvious to me because I do this day in and day out, but industrial sources, so PFAS manufacturers, any industrial processes that use PFAS, they could be releasing PFAS through their activities. Landfills and wastewater treatment plants are often cited. They're more what we would call passive receivers, so they're not really generating PFAS, but they're getting it from, you know, the waste source coming into those facilities. Not so much in Connecticut because we don't generally allow application of biosolids or sewage sludge to the land surface, but elsewhere in the region, in the Northeast, you might hear stories about Maine in particular where farmers applying sludge that contains PFAS to their lands has caused pretty extensive contamination in the area. And then kind of what brought us to Killingly, which I'll talk about in a second, is firefighting foams historically had really high concentrations of PFAS in them. PFAS are really great at smothering and putting out fires. We now know that there's some downsides to that. So with that, I'll move on to the next slide. So taking a quick step back, just wanted to speak to why DEEP is testing PFAS for PFAS in private wells, generally speaking, not just here in Killingly, but statewide. And really it ties back to the state's PFAS action plan. So back in 2019, there were 2 significant firefighting foam releases to the Farmington River. The first was an accidental release where an airplane hangar was accidentally triggered and the foam went down into the the floor drain and ultimately out the wastewater treatment plant to the river. And for those that live nearby, it looked like the river was coated in shaving cream for a few days. So pretty alarming. The second was a release that was in response to an airplane crash that happened at Bradley Airport. So we had these two back-to-back releases that generated a lot of interest in PFAS and really kind of, I think, shaped Connecticut's response in a way that was more tailored towards firefighting foams that maybe some of the other states have been. So, referring back to Maine again, they've really been focused on agricultural impacts and sludge and things like that. So in Connecticut, we've been a little bit at the forefront when it comes to PFAS and firefighting foams and trying to get that out of the state to reduce the potential for future releases. So in that action plan, it specifically called out that the state should be testing for PFAS in private residential wells, and it also called out that the state should be looking at environmental media, so soil, groundwater, near fire departments and fire training facilities, because those locations are at increased risk, not necessarily a guarantee, but increased risk of having PFAS in the soil and groundwater. We are also, by Connecticut general statute, DEEP does have authority to pursue private well sampling and testing. And the good news is that currently we also have funding to actually do it. So not only do we have the ask to do it and the authority to do it, we can actually implement some of these recommendations at the moment due to bond funding that's been allocated for the purpose. So next slide. So taking those last two bullets from the action plan, the emphasis on looking at fire training areas or departments and testing private wells, we looked at the statewide, looked overall at the state to see where there's fire training facilities, and then of those facilities, which ones had private drinking water wells in close proximity. So we developed a short list of those, and Killingly, the Rogers section in particular, where the fire training center is, was on that list as a result of the wells in close proximity to the training center. And then Killingly was brought to the top of our list because, according to the Department of Economic and Community Development, the community holds distressed municipality status. So generally speaking, the assumption was made that it might have fewer resources to respond to this issue than some other communities in the state may have. So we prioritized Killingly over other towns as a result of that information. So the map on the right, I just want to emphasize, Killingly is obviously a very big town. I hail from the teeny tiny town of Andover. So in comparison, you guys are huge. Our investigation area is really focused on a very small portion of the town overall. So that purple shaded area is where we're talking about. I get a lot of inquiries from residents elsewhere in the town, and unfortunately at this time, the state's not able to, DEEP is not able to offer them testing through our current investigation related to the Rogers section. But there's another opportunity that I'll talk about in a little bit. So next slide. So before I go too much further, there's a lot of people helping us to implement this program, and I want to acknowledge them. Ray mentioned the other staff members in our team back at DEEP. Some of them are on the call tonight. We also have contractors that we're working with to actually implement the program. So GZA is the one going out, knocking on doors and offering testing to homes that are eligible. If the homes are tested and they have elevated PFAS levels, Aquapump is the company that we're using to install the treatment systems. And then I failed to put them on the slide, but WB Mason is providing bottled water delivery service for those folks until we can get the treatment systems installed and tested to confirm that they're working. The town has been a partner from the beginning. Back when Buddy was the interim town manager, we spoke to him early on and worked with him. And then when Brian came on, we transitioned to working with Brian. The engineering staff in particular has been really helpful with looking into property records and things like that to help us try to figure out where this is coming from. Luigi and his staff similarly have been great about looking into what existing water quality information there may be for homes to help us kind of understand the information and responding to concerns from the residents related to health impacts. Same with that, the Department of Public Health, their private well program is run by Ryan Tatro. So when folks have questions related really specifically to treatment systems or to testing for other water quality parameters, we're referring them over there. And Shwin Shea is one of the toxicologists. There's a few others, but he's mainly been the one responding to the really nitty-gritty health-based questions. So this is a presentation from DEEP, but I do want to acknowledge, there's a lot of other folks working on this project as well. So next slide. Okay, so this one I'm going to try to slow down a little bit. So this is our general approach that we've taken in Killingly. So first stop is always, talking to the town, talking to local health, telling them what we plan on doing, and then gathering their feedback. So we had that conversation early on with Killingly. We were provided with the information that the fire training center's new, that, foam, there's no record of foam having been used at the facility, so PFAS wasn't really likely to be on the property as a result of fire training. But collectively all agreed the town, the state was geared up to come to the town and offer testing, so it didn't hurt to just, proactively test those residents and, verify there was no PFAS and move on was the hope. That's obviously not what happened. So we had started with those homes closest to the fire training area, so we ring the property, offer testing to homes within 500 feet. So, a property has to be residential and it has to have an on-site private drinking water well. So if a property is served by public water, the water company is doing its own testing, they're not going to be involved in this program. And typically if a property is industrial, commercial, unless it's a multi-purpose property where there is a residential dwelling, they also wouldn't be eligible for testing for us. So we're really focused on the residential private wells. Testing and anything beyond testing is totally voluntary, but we do, encourage folks to participate because there is a potential risk to their health if their well is impacted, and we want to just make sure that they understand that risk when they make their decision. So we make 3 attempts. We start just with the tax records and put out a letter in the mail to whoever the owner on record is. Oftentimes we don't hear back from that record, probably not surprisingly. I know I myself put a fair number of letters in the recycle bin. So then we will send out a second letter a month later if we haven't heard from them. Sometimes that's letter, with the help of the town or the health department or others, we'll gain information about, corrections to either the address or the homeowner. And then we also have the sampling field staff, when they're out doing sampling, they'll knock on the doors of anybody that we haven't heard from yet to try to make contact with the homeowner and talk to them about the program. Our last ditch effort is we send out a letter via certified mail with signature requested. And at that point, we stop trying to contact the homeowner. That said, as long as we're in town, if someone that we've attempted to reach out to previously comes back to us and says, I did get that stuff back, in July last year, but at the time I wasn't interested, I'm interested now, we still honor that offer to test. So it's a valid offer until, we're done with this project. So we test. Our first priority is sharing the results with the homeowner. We do request a rush analysis from the lab on those initial results. We want to get them around as quickly as possible. We recognize there's a lot of anxiety involved in this testing. So we're immediately calling the homeowner, letting them know in particular if there's high levels of PFAS. And we can offer them bottled water if they're interested. Most are, but not everybody chooses to accept that. And then once the lab report comes in, confirming the exceedance notice that we got from the lab, we'll also give the homeowner information about the treatment system that DEEP can install. Sometimes the homeowner's ready to accept right then, but typically if I haven't heard from them, in a month's time frame, I'll call them and say, are there any, questions I can answer to help you make your decision? But again, it's voluntary. They could have high levels in their well and choose that they don't want treatment, and that's their choice as a private homeowner. So once we get those homes squared away that have been tested and require treatment, we do retest after the treatment's been installed. We don't assume it's working. We want to make sure we have data to confirm it's removing the PFAS. Then we will look at what homes with private wells are within a certain radius of the homes that we just tested that had high PFAS levels. So our standard when we're working at other towns in the state is 500 feet, but because the levels were so high at that first round of homes that we saw, we expanded out 1,000 feet. So we jumped out a little farther than we normally would. We go through the same process. We offered those folks testing and treatment if they needed it. And then we did a third round, I believe, starting in November. And the plan is to keep doing that until either there's no homes with private wells, if we hit public water area, or more optimistically, if we can start to find groundwater concentrations that either have very low or no PFAS levels, that would be the ideal. So that's the general what we've been doing and plan going forward. Next slide. So I just wanted to emphasize it takes not a really long time. It takes quite a bit of time to work with an individual homeowner. I know in talking to some folks that are anxious to see if they're eligible for testing, sometimes they're frustrated with the pace that this is going at. And so I just wanted to kind of spell out why it takes so long to do each round. So typically, less so lately because there's more awareness of the issue, but especially in the beginning, it often takes a few weeks to get a hold of folks and, say, yes, we're sincere, we want to offer you testing. Once they accept the testing, they then coordinate with GZA directly to figure out a date and time that'll work for them to get the testing done. The results typically take a week, sometimes 2 weeks to come back. We notify the homeowner, put them on bottled water if that's what they want. And then if they're interested in installing a treatment system, sometimes that decision's made immediately. Sometimes it takes a few weeks for them to make that decision. But then they connect with Aquapump and again, do the scheduling process to find a time that'll work for them. Typically, I think the latest I've really seen was like without the homeowner saying, I'm just not available, I'm out of town or something like that. That usually happens within a month of getting the results that there's high PFAS. But then we need to wait 3 weeks after the treatment system's installed to really let the system get flushed out through toileting and showering, things like that, so that we can retest and confirm that the drinking water is okay at that point. In all the homes that we've retested after installing treatment, no PFAS have been detected. So we're really confident in the systems that we're installing, but at the same time, we like having that piece of data to just confirm, that everything is actually okay for them to resume drinking their water. And then depending on the initial PFAS concentrations that were in their water, we'll offer to retest either in 6 or 12 months. So for the homes with higher concentrations, out of an abundance of precaution, we're going back out in 6 months. Our normal protocol is to go back out in a year. Next slide. So that's kind of the summary or the generalization. So I wanted to give a little bit of detail about what the actual results have been, while trying to preserve the privacy of the folks that are participating. So you're not going to see, red dots on the maps that we produce. We want folks to participate without fear that their home is going to be put on a map in a public presentation. That said, we do share the results with the town. So the first round of testing, letters went out in July, and testing occurred in the roughly July-August timeframe. There were 21 properties that were identified as eligible. 14 of those chose to participate, and unfortunately all of them had relatively high levels of PFAS that warranted treatment. Everyone did accept treatment. And just to give you some perspective, on average the homes had about 400 nanograms per liter of PFOA, which is the predominant PFAS compound that we're seeing in wells in this area. And the Department of Public Health advises that if you have PFOA concentrations above 16, that you not drink the water. So these levels were really high and very alarming. So that's why we rushed to expand in round 2 in the September-October. 24 more properties surrounding those initial ones were offered testing. 20 of them chose to participate, and this time 16 required treatment. We did have 4 that either had no detections of PFAS or they had PFAS in their water, but it was at levels that weren't considered a long-term health risk. The average overall was 67 nanograms per liter of PFOA for homes, so significantly less than those first few homes that we tested. We expanded out again between November and now. We're just kind of at the final stages of wrapping up the third round. It was a much larger number of homes, about 3 times what we attempted in the first 2 rounds, and then the holidays and winter weather, kind of made it extend a little bit longer. But we offer testing to 73 properties. 59 so far have participated. 48 of those do have elevated PFAS levels still. There's, I think, as of this morning, 4 properties that the results are still pending, so we don't know what the outcome of those are. The average is still kind of around the same as round 2, so 79 nanograms per liter was the average. But in both round 2 and round 3, I just want to point out that the concentrations we were seeing ranged from none, from PFAS were not detected at all in the drinking water, to highs in the low 200s. So it's really variable in the homes as we move away from that initial testing area. And some of that has to do with the well construction and depth, we think. Some of the homes are along the southern edge of the lake there. They have dug wells that, are less than 10 feet deep, whereas other homes have bedrock wells that might be up to 500 feet deep. And groundwater isn't uniform under the ground surface. So it could be that there's, different levels of PFAS depending on the depth that the well is hitting. So that's some of the stuff we're trying to start to look at now and see if we can tease out. Unfortunately, unless a home is newer, the homeowner often doesn't have detailed information about their well, so we're trying to dig out the old records and see if we can find well construction reports and things like that to get a sense for depth, to try to do some modeling that might help us figure out where it's coming from. I'll say, even though we haven't sort of confirmed nor deny, the fire training area as a source of those initial homes, it's definitely not the source of the other homes that we're finding further out. The way groundwater flows, I think it's very unlikely that the fire training center, if it had been fully contaminated with PFAS-containing foam, it wouldn't explain the results we're seeing closer to the lake or the other areas in the investigation. So there could be multiple sources of PFAS. We're trying to tease that out, but our priority first and foremost is protecting the public. So until we are confident that we've offered testing and, if needed, treatment to anyone that could still be at risk through contaminated drinking water, that's going to be our main focus. We're collecting information about where the source is or source could be, but that's sort of secondary to making sure that folks have clean drinking water, essentially. Next slide. So looking forward, there's a new color added to this, and the colors have no meaning other than to just signify just generally where we're sampling in a given round. So a darker color does not indicate higher levels of PFAS or anything like that. It was just to kind of give you a visual of our expansion. So as I mentioned, we're wrapping up this last round of testing, so we anticipate late April. We expect to send out offer letters to the next round of homes. So we have 24 homes flagged. Those homes are within approximately 500 feet of a home that has a contaminated well. So they're at risk of their well also being contaminated. And then there was also a number of homes that we contacted during the last round and learned that they were seasonal properties that were shut down for the winter. So we weren't able to test them at the time. That as properties open up for the summer, we'll be able to go back to those homes and offer testing. I mentioned the source investigation work. We have a forensic chemist that joined the project team through GZA. So they're looking at what's called PFAS signatures. So in addition to just how much PFAS you have, the different types of PFAS that are present in groundwater might give you a sense for, if a cluster of wells might have PFAS coming from the same source versus a different cluster of wells might be coming from a different source. So it's a tool that's used to try to figure out, often it's used for legal reasons to say that's not my PFAS, that's so-and-so's PFAS, but it's helpful in cases like these to try to figure out where there may be sources to explain the results. Next slide. So just one last slide, because I think this has caused a little confusion, so I just wanted to speak to it. Tomorrow evening, folks are probably aware, there's another PFAS presentation in town. UConn and DPH have a partnership underway that they are offering test kits to any resident in town. DEEP is not directly involved in that program. We're aware of it, but I just wanted to kind of let folks know it's a separate program. I think the commonality is that we're both looking at PFAS, but if folks have questions, they should talk to UConn about that. There won't be discussion of DEEP's investigation at tomorrow night's meeting. I think the intention is really more to give kind of an overview, a 101 of what PFAS is and why it's a concern in drinking water, and then offer test kits to some folks in the audience. But I would, like I said, we're not directly involved, so questions should really be sent to UConn on that one. But that said, for those folks in town that are concerned and are not eligible for testing by DEEP, it is an opportunity for them to potentially get tested at no cost. So I wanted to, if anyone was not aware, make folks aware of that. And I think that's it. I think the last slide is just my contact information. So happy to take questions. Yeah.
Tomorrow night's group, if they get
Should I turn mine off? Or?
Okay, tomorrow night's group isn't directly associated with the DEP, but if that shot starts showing PFAS, is there going to be an intermixing of information and?
Potentially. So yeah, we have asked them to share any results with us that come in. When we test, we're testing for a larger list of PFAS compounds. Their funding is federal, so it's tied to what's called the MCLs, maximum contaminant levels, that the federal government released guidance values for PFAS in drinking water. So they're only looking at the compounds that have an MCL value. So I believe it's 6 in total. So it'll be a shorter list that folks get reported on, but it will include PFOA, which is the big one that we're seeing in folks' wells. So we're definitely interested in particularly homes that are in closer proximity to our investigation area. And then hopefully it doesn't happen, but if there is a discovery of high levels of PFAS elsewhere in town, the department would look at that information and decide if a response was warranted by our agency.
See, because there's a number of industrial dumps in town, and I'm looking at, I'm just not too far out of phase 4. And my wife was concerned, and it's, well, we were thinking about a test. Now that's coming up, so I guess definitely we'll participate. But it's the very tip. I'm looking at the southernmost part. There's an old dump in that area.
We are definitely interested in any information that folks have. There's, we know where I think it's the Fairview Apartments now. It's gone through a few different names. We know it as the former Robinwood Apartments. So that one is a permitted waste in place location, so we're aware of that one. There was also previous activity by DEEP and EPA at what I believe is the former Quinniquac Farm. So we're aware of those two locations, but any other that's what I was mentioning. Yeah, go ahead.
This is prior to that, where
Okay.
they were here and then they went to the Quinniquac Farm area, so.
So I would love to talk to you if you, if you have.
My property actually abuts this,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, and I mean, that is the type of, and I will say the community has been incredibly helpful with sharing, either, there are a number of older, residents that have lived in town for, a significant, if not all of their life, and, they've shared stories that they're aware of. So it is helpful, even if it's only anecdotal or, I heard a rumor. Obviously documents and photographs and things like that are most helpful, but any tidbits of information like that are helpful to help us try to figure out, because ultimately the goal is to, the polluter pays concept, whoever's responsible, holding them responsible for the long-term testing and treatment at these homes.
Yeah, but the dumping in those days, there was no criteria. You just kinda, then it wasn't until the Clean Water Act sort of came into play when all this started to take place.
Long enough back in history, yes, that's just what people
Right.
did. Just to add some finer points on some of the statements that Megan was sharing, PFAS is just so incredibly unique because it is an ingredient in so many products that we all use every day. We all have it in our households. It's not listed as an ingredient. When we're performing environmental investigations, typically outside of PFAS, it's that we're mostly looking for very large petroleum releases, industrial chemicals, where we know the chemical fingerprint or signature. So we can very quickly track down where that source is, identify the polluter or the property owner who is otherwise responsible for that source of pollution that's, in essence, impacting other property owners through impairment of drinking water. With PFAS, the opportunities for release of this chemical to the environment are infinite. We are going to find PFAS in other locations, perhaps through the DPH offer of free sample test kits. Will that mean DEEP is now pursuing investigations into those, what I'll say are relatively low concentrations? No. We are facing a very significant pollutant here that is, again, incredibly unique, given that low concentrations result in human health impacts. And it's everywhere. Not everywhere, but it's in so many different places. The odds of finding it, should you look for it, are actually pretty good. They're very good. So this type of situation is very challenging for us because there are so many opportunities to identify sources. Is there one source at play here? No. There are multiple sources at play here. Our job is to try to tease out what the most likely sources are based on groundwater flow direction, concentration, and as we refer to it, the signature or fingerprint of the PFAS chemical.
Go ahead.
So far, you've only talked about testing the water. If it's in people, does it show up in their blood?
Yeah, that's where the health-related questions come in, and I don't know if Luigi, feels
Yeah.
like tackling that. I don't want to put him on the spot.
Briefly, I've kind of done a crash course on PFAS from the health standpoint. When they refer to it as an emerging contaminant, it's just.
Wait, could you come up and, that would, thank you.
Hello. Okay. So from a health standpoint, it is an emerging contaminant, meaning that we don't fully understand how it migrates through, how it holds up in the body, how it's passed through the kidneys and the urine. We have some understanding of it, but it's emerging in that regards too. Anecdotally, I think we had a conversation recently about home gardeners and uptake in vegetables that you grow. And I put this question to our friends over at the State Ag and DPH, and they're still learning that too. The Maine conversation came up because Maine was using the sewage sludge for crops, largely going into animal feed. I got a call from a resident that has horses. She grows hay for her horses to eat. She wants to know, am I poisoning my horses? I try to put her at ease in the fact that this isn't an acute health risk, it's more of a chronic issue. We do have time on our hands, relatively low levels over time will have a negative health impact, but it's not like a bacterial contamination where if you eat it the next day you're in the hospital. So we do have time on our hands, and there are relatively effective treatment systems for wells. But again, it's emerging on all scales. We're learning more about it as time goes on, and I think from a triage standpoint, we're looking at it now we're kind of getting an understanding of the size and the scope of the contamination in our region. We have effective treatment and intervention strategies in the short term, and then I think going forward, we need to have serious conversations about long-term treatment or long-term interventions, whether it's public drinking water. That's more of a heavy lift, but I think that's the direction we're going to be going, at least especially in the more densely populated areas like Rogers, where we have that resource available to us. We can treat the wells, but that requires some human intervention.
So it's not like picking up lead and having lead in our blood, that at certain levels, at certain times, especially with young people.
I'm not exactly sure, to be honest with you. It's inconclusive. It doesn't have the same kind of thresholds associated. Lead we have.
Does it build up?
To a degree, yes, but it also sheds you shed it in your urine and feces too.
So if you get clean water after you've already tested the well and drink that, it may relieve some of the symptoms?
Yeah, symptoms happen after long-term chronic exposure at relatively high levels above that 14. So from a health standpoint, we always look at, obviously, the most at-risk population, infants, mothers, young children, the elderly too. But if you're living in town now and you've been drinking from your well your whole life and you're just finding out now that your well's contaminated, you've probably been drinking it for a long time.
So from what I heard, does that mean the wells that were 500 feet deep have a less opportunity to be contaminated?
Not necessarily. Again, it's hard because we don't have for every. Are you on? Oh, is that one on? Maybe it's me. So for every well that we've tested, we don't necessarily know how deep the well it is. So that makes it hard. So even though we've tested over 100 wells, I don't have the number offhand, but say we only have depth information for 30, that's really kind of narrowing down our ability to answer that question. I did just want to mention in regards to the health thing, we talk about PFAS like it's one thing, but it's really, there's a number of different chemicals that we're kind of grouping into that, and some are more, toxic may not be the right word, but more harmful than others. And so I think that's what the researchers are really trying to tease out right now is, when they do these studies, they're looking at, one chemical, often on rats, things like that. So it takes a really long time for that body of knowledge to build up sufficiently for us to be able to really understand what the likely impacts on people are. again, like, you know, we're focused on PFOA in Killingly just because it's the one that we're seeing at really high levels. We have detected some other PFAS compounds. I think, you know, there's 2 others that we've detected above what's called the action levels. So Public Health has established drinking water action levels, their guidance values for private well owners, not just for PFAS, for a lot of different, you know, water contaminants. But at those locations where another PFAS has exceeded those guidance values, PFOA has also exceeded. So we're really kind of, you know, responding to PFOA, and if something else is there, it's secondary. But it may give us clues into, you know, the ones where PFOS is another acronym for a different compound that we're seeing. So maybe the home where we also had an elevated amount of PFOS, that could be a clue that, you know, that's because there's a different source in that area. So that's kind of the stuff we're trying to tease out.
A question for, I guess, town manager. Can we assume, are the 2 schools there, Goodyear and Ellis Tech, are they on city water? So that's fairly, we're good there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the first things we confirmed, was just to make sure, yeah. And so with each property, so we have a general sense where there's city water, but we're not assuming anyone in close proximity to city water is on city water. So we're actually calling Connecticut Water with a list of addresses each time we expand to say, okay, how about this one? Are they one of your customers? Is this one of your customers, to confirm? And we have had a few homes within, you know, general areas of public water supply that are still using a residential well. So we offer them testing.
What kind of filters are you giving the filters to those to clean their water?
Yeah, so
What kind of-
they're what we call either point of entry treatment systems, or POET for short. Whole house systems is another way to look at it. So they're installed where the water comes into the home. So any water in the house is treated. So any tap you open is going to, you know, be water that went through that treatment system. So the standard design that we use is there's a sediment pre-filter, which is just kind of your standard pre-filter sediment filter, and then there's 2 each 3 cubic foot. GAC is the acronym, granular activated carbon. So essentially carbon is what's being used to suck the pollutants out of the water. So there's 2 tanks in series. The first one's getting the brunt of, you know, the PFAS that's coming in, and then the second's kind of the backup. So the testing that we do at the 6-month and 12-month interval, when they install those systems, they're also installing sampling taps at multiple points, so we can see, is there PFAS showing up between those 2 carbon tanks? Because if so, that's kind of our sign that maintenance is probably needed on that system. The second one is still doing the job and making sure the water, you know, going to the tap is clean, but the first one has become saturated and needs to be changed out.
So is it up to the homeowner to pay for the second filter?
Yeah, that's a question that we've struggled with. When we, generally speaking, in the state, when we install these systems, they're considered part of the home after installation, so they are their, you know, the property owner is the owner of the systems as well, and therefore generally responsible for their maintenance and upkeep. We have offered to anyone that we've installed treatment, if there's any issues in that first year, we've committed to sending Aquapump back out to deal with the issue, and also to retesting. We don't have a clear answer for beyond that point. You know, when I advise folks as to whether or not they should accept the system, I do encourage them to consider that long-term cost, because we can't guarantee at this point that someone else will cover it. The goal is to find, you know, whoever's responsible for the pollution and have them do so, but we can't promise at this point that we're going to be successful in doing so.
Thank you.
How do your Rogers area's findings compare to your other test sites in the state? Are these extraordinary? Are you finding these kind of results at other sites in the state?
Go ahead. I'll turn it.
So concentrations that we're finding in Rogers in comparison to other areas, each area is really quite unique. Again, the whole reason why we came to this section of town was because of the fire training facility. The use of that material, AFFF, aqueous film forming foam, it is loaded with PFAS. Where we have continued repeated use of that material being discharged for a purpose, training purposes typically, it saturates the soil, gets into the groundwater. So our primary focus is the drinking water wells around these fire training facilities. This happens to be our very first fire training facility that we are evaluating through this process. We are working with other municipalities that do have fire training facilities that they've identified, that they've self-identified, like, hey, we did training activities here in a ball field, maybe it's contaminated. They go out, they do some testing, sure enough, it is contaminated, and we're looking at a probably close to $1 million plus environmental cleanup activity for maybe a couple of times a year, firefighter training activities, probably back in the 90s sometime. So it's really hard to say that one site is like, or one scenario is like another in a different town. They're all very unique. The geology in Connecticut is very unique from the northeast to the northwest parts of the state. Additionally, the land use, all these factors play into what we're seeing for contaminant load. And then, of course, the individual PFAS compounds themselves. As Megan was mentioning, PFAS is the acronym for thousands of individual chemicals. We can only see analytically a tiny, tiny fraction right now. That's part of what makes this such a challenging project or contaminant to investigate, is that we're only seeing a very small fraction of the overall PFAS that may actually be present. Please.
Yeah, I would just add, PFAS testing is really expensive. You know, a standard test is between $300 and $400 usually, so most homeowners at this point are not routinely testing for PFAS, so we don't have a really good sense of, you know, statewide what to expect in private wells. So that's kind of a data gap at the moment. When we're conducting testing, it's either in response to a known release or because there's, you know, the potential for there to be elevated concentrations like around the fire training areas. The state is working with USGS, the United States Geological Survey, to do a statewide background study of PFAS in soil and in groundwater. And I think the results of those two studies will, you know, really help us better answer those questions in the future. Like what can we expect in an area where there's no industry, there's no fire training, there's no, you know, nothing other than forests and, you know, past farmlands. What can we expect in those areas? Because it can be transported through air as well. So we do expect to see some low levels, even in areas that aren't highly developed, but we just don't really know what those numbers are at this point. And hopefully as the cost of testing comes down, it'll be more accessible to folks that are concerned, and we'll have a bigger data set too to look at. And I think the Yukon program will be really informative. We don't have any way to control, you know, where those data points in town will be, but I think it'll give us a sense for, you know, what are the general levels elsewhere in town compared to this area that we're looking at.
Well, you were saying about ground contamination for training in a field somewhere. What about Danielson Airport? Now, is Williamsville Fire
I
Department?
personally dumped a lot of AFFF foam on a number of downplanes over the years. My
So
father did before me back into the 1970s.
That's where I was going with this. Now, the airport is a place where, that's still south of here, as, you know, as you were bringing up.
And Ed, we would train in a
Yes.
field.
Yeah.
You would just put down a foam blanket. You would learn how to do that.
Yep.
It was not
Right.
anything that was prevented. It was encouraged. It was
Yes.
good firefighting
Yes.
techniques at the time.
It was not a bad thing then.
No, and some airports were required, you know, by federal law. Certain airports in the country, but including in Connecticut, they were required to do annual testing. But, you know, I used to volunteer with my fire department. A good department is going to practice and train before the emergency incident. You're not going to wait for something to happen to, you know, figure out how to use things. So yeah, all around the state, you know, departments have been training with these products. They've been using them in response. As I mentioned, they're really effective at putting out what we call Class B fires. So fires, your auto fires, plane fires, things that involve gasoline and things like that. They're really great at doing that. Unfortunately, we now realize that they also are really great at contaminating, you know, the soil and potentially groundwater or surface water nearby. Yeah, so to be very
Not to pick
clear,
on
like,
you
even
guys,
though.
but I mean,
My entire family lives in that little
Yes,
bright
right.
purple
You're-
spot right
that's-
there,
yes,
by
that's-
God, so, you
so-
know, I understand.
No, I mean, it's you're right. But you were on city water though, not on.
Well, I have grandparents and uncles all in that purple area right there myself. you
Well,
know.
there, yeah, but a lot of that is on city water, but still a lot of it is on private wells.
Sure. And we trained in various places all around that spot.
That's the other part, the training, and that's why picking up Danielson Airport would be a more logical place.
There's definitely potential, yeah, we're.
Well, you're following the testing, where the testing leads you, that's where.
Yeah, our protocol right now is we're kind of, I won't say we're not concerned with the source, but we're concerned with giving folks the opportunity to have their water tested if they're in that area where we know based on past testing now that the levels are high. So that's really our main concern. And I mentioned Connecticut started on this PFAS journey in large part due to firefighting foam response. But we've been really sensitive throughout that process to recognize that, firefighters were doing their job. They put their lives on the line. This isn't in any way meant to be, an effort to criticize that community. It's just an unfortunate side effect of products that no one realized, were bad, so to speak, in regards to PFAS.
Well, you needed a way to put the fire out, so we found a way to put it out, but now we're.
If I could also add, we are frankly in triage mode. You mentioned, but there's other locations, there's other spots where training has occurred. Absolutely right. Our main focus here, because we are a group of 40 scientists serving the entire state. And all those different polluted properties well beyond PFAS that we're dealing with.
Yeah, oh, definitely, yeah.
So we are trying to put our time, attention, and resources in communities that are
The most at risk?
most at risk,
Yeah.
that utilize the groundwater resource for drinking purposes, so that we can do the most good
Right.
with that state funding.
So I have one more question. About when was the AFFF pulled from inventory once it was discovered that it was a pollutant?
So in Connecticut, we've banned the use of AFFF. I'm going to test my memory here. When did the ban? 2023?
And maybe a little bit earlier, so we.
It was a phased ban, so my.
Yeah. Training
Yeah,
was
so
out.
we initially, around the time that the action plan was passed, the first part of the ban was nobody could use it for training anymore. There were exceptions carved out for federal entities, so DOD, what's called the Part 3.1, I always mix up whether it's 319 is a water quality section, so 139 airports. So folks like that were required by the federal government, they were allowed to kind of keep doing their thing for the time being. So we had that initial ban on training, and then ultimately the ban was just flat out nobody can use it, and the federal government did come out with foams. There was at least one foam. I don't know if there's more at this time, but basically AFFF use was no longer mandatory for DOD facilities in particular and for those airports. So the state interpreted that as, since it's no longer mandatory, according to the ban that we had, they now had a year to phase out AFFF use. So it's not illegal to have AFFF. We're encouraging any departments that still have it in their stocks. It's kind of just like an accident waiting to happen to dispose of it. And the state did a big take-back program to try to gather up, what was out there. But it's still probably out there at certain departments and fire suppression systems. But until it's actually released into the environment, it doesn't violate that ban. So you can still buy it. We don't encourage it.
But pretty much what you're looking at is more of an industrial type of dumping. It's not the firefighting in this area. Well, it could be, but for the most part, it's the industrial part.
We're not sure is the short answer, but that's one theory, if you will, that we're exploring to see if we can, give any teeth to it. Some dumping, if it was just, household waste, your standard garbage, it probably has PFAS in it, but not at levels that would explain, someone having PFAS at 600 parts per trillion in their well. That would have to be dumping of more of an industrial, nature by a facility that uses PFAS.
Well, that's why
like
getting up to the Quinnipiac Farm arena, that was.
Yeah, so pockets where, folks just historically threw out their trash bags and, right or wrong, those are probably less concerning than if there's, areas where a facility was intentionally disposing waste.
So, on the Quinnipiac Farm area, has there been test wells on that site?
my understanding is that there's been for EPA, I believe it was the state of Connecticut, performed a site inspection. That's part of the ranking system to nominate a property onto the national priority list. So there's been, I would say, at least some cursory investigation. Priorities come and go, and a case of much greater risk to human health arises, which causes us to pivot to a different project. So that's why that particular farm was set down for a while. Our intention is to, through this process, renew that evaluation.
And I would just add, I hesitated because I wasn't with the remediation division at the time that investigation occurred. I was in a different portion of the agency, but PFAS wasn't on folks' radar at the time when that property was first being investigated, so it was looked at for other things. But to my knowledge, there's no PFAS data other than the homes that have participated surrounding that parcel, that we have the well data for those homes.
Coney Park, I was there in 1970. I saw the river change colors. And then in, what the hell was it, mid-70s, or a little later, I was asked to certify, I was a probate judge. They asked me to certify that land was not contaminated, and I said I wouldn't touch it. And then they grew strawberries there.
It's great. Is that what I heard?
I mean, great that you were
No,
here
yeah.
to bring this forward. A lot of information. I have it on. Fine.
We're pleased to be here. I know we shared a lot of information this evening. I'm thinking of 15 minutes, maybe we hit.
We'll suspend the rules.
We'll we're just teasing. No, we are a transparent agency. We want to share our message about PFAS, what it is that brought us to the town. So again, we greatly appreciate the invitation.
Well, that's why here, this is televised, so I appreciate it more so than just, most of the people in the audience have left. But if someone's watching it on TV, or come tomorrow and get that test kit if you're maybe a little bit outside of it. But even people within your region, some don't want to participate. I don't want.
This is not mandatory.
Right. So
We do make a best effort, as Megan was saying, to encourage folks to receive the testing. It's all free. We are not here to come into town, find problems, and leave them for the residents or the community to deal with. We're very thankful that we do have the funding to provide those filters. We are looking for those sources. If and when we do find sources that we can attribute to this pollution, we will be speaking with the creators or maintainers of that pollution.
But once someone has tested their well and they sell their property, they're under obligation to report it to the next buyer.
So the good news is with our program, if you test and you have high levels, we're giving you the treatment system. So Luigi kind of spoke to that. The silver lining, if you will, with PFAS is that there is treatment that effectively removes it. Even those homes that were upwards of 600 nanograms per liter of PFOA, after we installed the treatment, we detected no PFAS in the drinking water. So I think that's been a reassurance to some of the property owners that we're working with, if not their main driver for participating, and that's fine. People can participate or not participate for whatever reasons they choose to. We just want to make sure that they have all the information and understand the pros and cons, of participating and before they make their choice. But yeah, I also spoke to someone that had their test results, and I, relayed them to her, and I was concerned that we hadn't, set them up with bottled water yet, and she, said, I've you know, I forget her exact age, but in her 70s, had lived here since she was 2, and she was fine. So she wasn't terribly worried. And that's her choice too. You know, I just gave her all the information, and if she chooses not to, you know, go further with it, then that's fine. Yeah. I'll say we're happy to come back. I meet with Brian and Luigi monthly to try to give updates. I did, thanks, Ashley. Ashley was very patient working with me yesterday and today, but there is an update, if you will, on the town website for both the council and the public. So happy to continue to update those or come back. It's a straight shot on Route 6 for me, so I don't mind, you know, just let Brian know and we can come back out. So.
Next up on the agenda, a presentation from Northeast District Department of Health regarding the opioid task force. I can let you, I gotta talk, grab this.
I did so good you get me twice.
I apologize, I have to go to work.
We'll keep this short.
If I have questions, I know where to find you.
Always, yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Luigi Sartori. This is Doug
Testing.
Lopel.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Douglas Lopel.
Yeah. And we're here tonight to talk about the proposed regional opioid prevention service. So I'll give a quick little background on this, and then I'll let Doug present. So a little over a year ago, the district was approached by our partners over at the COG, because the smaller towns in the Northeast were struggling to find a purposeful use of the opioid settlement funds that they were getting. And some of them were contracting with regional clinical services. Some of them, the amounts, quite frankly, were on their own too small to stand up a program on their own to be able to affect some real change. It just wasn't enough independently to hire somebody and get a program up and running. So I used to work with Jim Rivers in Wyndham, and he pointed at me from across the room and he says, "Why don't you do it?" And so, being new, I said yes. So we put together a proposal for the 12 partner towns that we serve to be able to pool together the resources into a more of a substantial fund and really stand up a health prevention program when it comes to opioids and harm reduction overall. So the idea is that we can take this settlement fund for the next few years as it exists and make inroads into the target population, mostly the middle school and younger kids, from a prevention standpoint, not from an acute intervention standpoint for addiction services or mental health to a degree, but mostly on the prevention side. And then dovetail that into a future program that's going to go into all sorts of harm reduction within the region. The hope is that we solve one problem and then we can springboard onto the next. So with that, I'll leave you with Doug here. He's our wonderkind that we brought on board to spearhead this program.
Well, thanks for having me today. So I'll start with the presentation. So this is our proposal for regional opioid prevention services. So over a 5-year period from 2020 to 2024 in Connecticut to detail the severity of opioid use in Connecticut. So from 2020 to 2024, there were over 70,000 overdoses, over 6,600 deaths. Evidence suggests that fentanyl is the main driver of overdose deaths, and this has informed our substance use prevention initiatives. Next slide. So some of the commonly reported substances have been any opioid, also fentanyl, which is also an opioid, prescription drugs, xylazine, heroin, and cocaine. And some of the emerging substances have been bromazepam, carfentanil, and nitazenes. Next slide. And I found this chart. I thought it was interesting. In 2021, 2022, so 2021 is in blue and 2022 is in orange. The fatal overdoses in Connecticut are very high. And in 2023, the second half of 2023 in yellow, you notice a decrease in overdose deaths. And in red, 2024, and green, 2025, it continues to decrease fatal overdose deaths. And you not only see it in Connecticut, but you also see it nationwide. There's been a decrease in overdose deaths. Next slide. So in our district, our 12-member towns, over a 3-year period, in 2023, we saw 24 fatal overdoses amongst our residents in all 12 towns. And 2024, that number decreased to 15 fatal overdoses. In 2025, that number is 14 fatal overdoses. And this is from the Connecticut Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. Next slide. So some of our strategies that we're using are surveillance, prevention, and access to treatment. So with surveillance, I've been doing surveillance. I've been creating monthly reports on overdoses, fatal and non-fatal, and giving it out to all of the towns. So I'll continue to do that. Next slide. So something that I found interesting, of the 1,178 licensed psychiatrists in Connecticut, only 6 of them practice in northeastern Connecticut. And Northeast Connecticut Planning Region has the lowest percentage of mental health outpatient clinics per 100,000 residents. Wyndham Hospital provides no inpatient mental health care, and Dade Kimball Hospital provides a small 15-bed inpatient psychiatric unit and outpatient care, but offers no treatment for substance use disorders. And depending on how much staffing they have, they might not be able to use all the 15 beds. And we've reached out to some harm reduction organizations to see if they even provide resources here. There was one Perceptions program. Unfortunately, they lost their funding, so they no longer operate in Wyndham County. But there are some others, they don't have the resources to go east of Willimantic or north of Norwich. So, next slide. And with this one, like if we click the link, I don't want it to, don't click the link, because I'm afraid it's going to end the Zoom. So I do have a chart on a data visualization. I can hand it to each one of you so you can look at it, but I'll do it after the presentation. So next slide.
Said it'll work.
Oh, it'll work? Okay, then you can click on it. So I created a data visualization dashboard from Epicenter data, which is used for the hospitals for suspected ED admissions. So this one is based on suspected opioid-related overdoses. So the first...
Make sure you tell them, so just to give you a heads up, the union issue, it's because
Yeah.
it's based on census tract, they share a zip code with Stafford. So it's really half that.
Yeah. So
I know it's I nitpick it.
Yeah.
It bothers me.
That is
because
very important.
There's not much we could do on drawing that data.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Union is 900
Yeah.
people, so it's really, when it's dark red, I don't want you to think what's going
Yeah.
on up in Union. That's Stafford's problem.
Yeah, so we can't tell whether it's Union or Stafford, but we can do it based on the zip code, 06076. No, not at all. Yeah, so you can just go to each zip code and you can see the amount. If you go to Danielson one, it's the very bright red one below. That one is 49 suspected overdoses, ED admissions. So that one was the highest one out of all the zip codes we had, but that was for 2025. And then the next one is a bar graph. So it breaks it down by a month, monthly suspected ED admissions. So I think September was the highest one, which was 33. And age group, the highest number was 25 to 44 age group. There was 50. And for gender, there were more females than males that were admitted for a suspected opioid overdose. And then if you click on like 2024, it'll take you to 2024, and same thing with 2023. So I guess we can go to the next slide. Okay. So, yeah, so for the town of Killingly, in blue is the ED admissions through epicenter, so suspected opioid overdoses. And in orange is fatal overdoses through OCME, Connecticut, the Office Chief Medical Examiner. So for 2023, amongst Killingly residents, there were 9 fatal overdoses. That number decreased to 2 in 2024, and in 2025, that number is 3 fatal overdoses. Next slide. So our plan is to create a governance structure and create a regional advisory group. So we would like representatives from the towns, healthcare, first responders, and community organizations. And I would be the project coordinator. I'll oversee implementation and reporting. And then NDDH leadership will ensure oversight, compliance, and fiscal integrity. And what we are asking for is to authorize NDDH to coordinate opioid-related services, to commit settlement funds to support the regional plan, and to designate a liaison to the advisory group. Next slide. So this is a 5-year timeline of what we are planning on achieving. So I'll be going over the various metrics that we would like to achieve for each year. Next slide. So for year 1 in fiscal year 2026, we will we'll establish a coordinator and advisory group. Our surveillance data systems will be operational. So I'm sending out the monthly reports. If anyone wants me to send them the monthly reports of what's going on in our 12 towns with fatal and non-fatal overdoses, please feel free to reach out to me. I can send it to you. We'll have at least 10 training events held, and we want to reach out to 500 residents, and we will measure based on what we want to achieve for years 2 through 5. Next slide. So for year 2, we're going to expand the program. So we want to distribute at least 100 naloxone kits and 100 hygiene kits. We want to engage at least 500 residents in prevention activities and at least 100 individuals connected to services. It may be it could be with employment or housing, various other things, because we want to focus on prevention. So for year 3, we will formalize our hospital and recovery partnerships. We will complete a mid-cycle evaluation to see what works and what can be improved upon, and then we will implement those program improvements. Next slide. So for year 4, we will secure state and federal grants. We will solidify the next phase plan, and then we will launch an online resource hub on our website, the NDDH website, where people can go and find resources. Next slide. And for year 5, we want to see a reduction in overdoses, fatal overdoses, by at least 10%. We will assess town satisfaction through an online survey, and then we will approve of the next 5-year plan. Next slide. So this is our evaluation framework. So our focus area will be on overdose trends, the Narcan training, community engagement, recovery linkages, and program impact. So we will evaluate based on various methods, and we will be reporting frequently. Next slide. And that's it. Any questions?
Where is the training going to take place?
As in like the Narcan trainings? Yeah. So we'll have Narcan trainings through our 12 towns. We'll find areas where we can have Narcan trainings. It could be at like It could be at like libraries, it can be at various other places, it could be at like a food pantry. So we'll look to identify places as well, and we're hoping with Liaison they can find areas as well. And at our health department, there's a lot of people who are from the area who've grown up here, so they'll be able to identify as well, along with our many partners.
So, excuse me, the paramedics already have the Narcan.
So if I may, I think, so the thing that for us I think is a little bit different is we're really focusing on the prevention side of things. So it's the first responders, police, EMT, part of the reason why you're seeing that reduction in overdose deaths is because that population, they've been doing this for a while, and you're seeing those impacts. What we're really going to focus on is not the population that we know may be using or maybe accidentally exposed, but the next generation, the generation coming up, and making sure that kind of exposure, that kind of association, they're getting saturated, in a respectful way to the risks and prevention strategies, so they don't go down that path. It's a little bit more nuanced, but it's like we're starting a retirement account for them almost with this kind of stuff. Short answer is we work with all our partners. I mean, our supervisor for the program, she's an EMT and a nurse, but I think we've already made pretty stable inroads in that population.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
So United Services in Dayville already has a Killingly Youth Substance Prevention Coalition for the schools, so this would be a duplication of services. If you're looking at the next generation, those services are already provided.
Well, we don't just deal with addiction services. It wouldn't be just that.
This is Prevention Coalition.
Yeah. Well, they're one of the groups that we are going to be working with, and part of our auditing, internal auditing, is that we don't do duplicating services. The other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that whoever we get from the town, from the advisory, that serves in advisory capacity, will give us more of a on the ground local flavor. Really, like where they see us best used in their towns. It's not every town's different. Killingly's different than Plainfield. It's different than Sterling. We were up in Union the other day. Very different population there too. So if the school isn't somewhere they want us, maybe they want us somewhere else. Maybe they want us working with recreation. Maybe they want us working through the library.
And we did find, our opioid settlement funds went to the Quiet Corner Peer Support Group. So that was a good group for that money to go to. And if the state wants, the health departments to come up with new programs, only 15% of the opioid settlement funds is going to the municipalities. The state, this is federal funds that goes to the state. This is from federal lawsuits for the pharmaceutical companies. So it's not state money. This is federal money that went to the state, and the state is keeping 85% of it. So I'm thinking if they want the health departments to have these programs, they should designate more of those funds to the health department. If other municipalities have useful organizations where they are donating or giving their funds to.
I agree with what you're saying. I think the state has no part in this. This is a program that the towns through NECOG solicited the district to come up with a workable plan. So
well, NECOG's the right arm of the state, so.
It was the town leaders that approached this. They just happened to be at a NECOG meeting. Again, it's up to you. It's like I said, these are funds that were granted to the town through that federal lawsuit. We're standing up a program. We're already providing the service for the other towns. So we want to extend the same courtesy to Killingly. It's our biggest town. It's our most at-need population, as the data shows. And I think that we can make some positive inroads for nominal amount. So thank you.
So your ask is for 5 years, and then you're looking to pick it up with state grant and funding after that? Did I understand that right?
We're seeking, so that the discretion of how much the town wants to give is really up to you. What we're trying to do is stand up some seed money on a prevention and harm reduction program through all 12 towns. And all 12 towns they haven't all committed, but they've all are in the process of going that route with us. And then we're gonna leverage the program, basically showing that we're delivering some impact and going after grant money and soliciting the state, both through rural health and through general funds.
And how many more years are we designated to get this money, Brian?
I don't think we have a clear indication of how many more years we're gonna get funding.
Based on the Public Act, it's at least another 10 years, but the amount varies. It's a formulary, but it goes up and down.
So the information that I found said that the state of Connecticut's supposed to get, 600 million. Over the.
Over the
core.
10? Okay.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I mean, the lion's share is staying in Hartford. You know, and a little bit is going out to the partner towns. And some of the larger towns that, or towns that had their own health departments, they already had some of those services in-house, and they basically just funneled that money to offset general fund expenditures. The district, the good and bad of the district is that, you know, they're smaller towns. The amounts that were levied, or that were granted to the towns were substantially less than the bigger cities. But I think that the shared costs across the 12 towns, it actually, you're getting more of a value of your services than you would, say, in one of the larger city departments.
So how much money do you need to run the program?
Right now, we budgeted for next year at $85,000. And depending on the first allotment from the towns, it'll give us a better idea how to build out the next year's budget. But that's what we've allotted for. Now, I should tell you that the district took a progressive step to actually, it was largely because we lost staff. So we lost 1.5 staff members, so we had a little bit of money left in payroll. So we went ahead and we hired Doug on a part-time basis without any funds. So the district has skin in the game too. It's not state funded. It was amount of money that we had because we lost a staff member. So we've decided to put it to good use and jumpstart this program on our own. And as a sign of good faith that we're in this with our partner towns too. The state is not funding us beyond at all with this. So
Do you know the total of all the towns? What, per year, what they're getting or what they got last year?
we can make the totals that they were awarded in the past and what they have up to date available to you, but it's not, the formulary is unclear as to how to project forward. I can certainly make that available to you, but it's not I can't give you an idea of what 2027 is gonna look like from the different towns, because I don't know.
Yeah.
And
I'm just interested in what
Yeah.
if there was one year that you had, you could see what the
So-
total number all the towns brought in and
So
what
some
you
of
need
the-
to get to 85,000.
Well, we did that based on our costs.
Okay.
What we.
I meant more like what you'd need, break it down simply by how many towns you need 85,000, how much.
Well,
do you
every
need
town
per-
got a little bit different.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
But we basically priced out the cost of staff member and some operating expenses.
Yep.
And for next year's budget, that was the projection. And then if we were able to leverage other revenue sources, not of the towns through this fund, but either grants or other harm reduction revenue streams, then we can build the program and go beyond just opioids. That's the goal, is to like Ryan's heard me pitch it when I met with him, but the thing that I'd like to see this go is, we solve the opioid problem, or at least we keep it down to a level where it's manageable, and then we can venture into other things like vapes with kids. That's a big one for me that I think we need to take attention. We're not really looking at, and recreational cannabis use. That's a big one too. So when I was a kid, it was alcohol, but I guess the kids don't drink these days, which is a win from a public health standpoint. So. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know it's a long night being the last group to come up, but I appreciate you taking the time to hear us out. And as always, we're right down the road. If you have questions or concerns, feel free to come to us. It's a moving target. We're building it. We're not doing it in a vacuum. We're actually utilizing, there's a couple of other districts in the state that have a similar program. The one that's most similar to what we're doing is out in Torrington Health District. So we've bounced ideas off of them. We've looked at what they've done as far as what works. We want to work with the partners that are in the community too. Like I said, like you referred to, we don't want to duplicate services. We want to be efficient with the settlement and with the taxpayers' money. We don't want to throw it around willy-nilly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned.